Hey everyone. Is everyone having a super sparkly day? I'm glad to see that. One, two, three. Well, I had my third career fair today at UDM, so I have a pile of resumes um, of the new arrivals into our profession. But looking around, none of you are in that pile, so you all must be just peachy the way and where you are. Good for you. Hats off to you. So Justin's going to drag a little bit. How many do we have? One, two, three. So we can get started. Justin's let me know that he's going to be late. So talk to me, right? You've just been through a major benchmark. What was your impression?
Betsy has really good feedback,
Hmm.
but terrible handwriting.
Oh, come on.
Totally agree. I couldn't read anything she wrote on my
Come
paper, and
on.
then I
She
took notes.
letters all of our site plans. I read it. I'm like, dude, what is your problem? If I can read it, anybody can read it. You do have to work with her to get it, though. I will grant you that. But like she actually drew something on Justin's drawing. She did a Noli plan, like a figure ground plan. So she is an accomplished critic. She has taught at the University of Michigan for several years. She taught at IIT. She's graduate School of Design. She is one of my most important catches in terms of employees. I brought her in, and I am so glad that I did. She has just been a tremendous value to us. So we'll coax her to work on her handwriting, Brandon. She admits that she thinks it could be better, but
I
so
still
we'll,
haven't
we'll
found
hope
a,
to forgive her.
I still haven't found a cryptographer to help me decipher the language. So
I think I actually read everything. I could read everything that she wrote.
okay,
So you're just being a baby.
pretty much.
What else? On a more serious note, explain to me why you think she's a good critic.
I don't know. Like I think, in my opinion, anyways, crits are hard.
Yeah,
Like looking at something, you know what I mean? Especially
fresh.
all the different ones. So
Yeah,
she had really quick, like I don't know. She's probably obviously been doing this a lot longer than everybody else, but she had quick feedback,
mm,
and all of the feedback that I thought from everybody's project is something that I didn't really think of before, but it was really applicable to everybody's project.
sure.
Specifically mine, obviously. Like I like the feedback she gave me and like what I can improve. So I thought out of everybody, she was kind of the most helpful, and
Good,
I liked what
good.
she had to say. So,
Yeah, and I could tell she was fatiguing even as she was sitting there. I could just see it, and yet she kept up and she stayed with it. I think she at one point, Heather, it might have been because of you, she caught a second wind, and not that anyone before her made her tired or whatever. To her credit, she came in on Saturday and worked a big chunk of Saturday, and she worked all Easter Sunday, well into the evening, like around 9:30. So she had a busy week before, and she had a busy weekend as well, and came off of a fairly busy Monday. So I could see why she was running out of steam, but that didn't seem to diminish the content and the quality of the discussion, and I was glad about that. Any other feedback? I'd like to hear from all of you, actually.
I liked her comments and Christoph's as well. I thought like the questions that they asked made me kind of realize graphically what I need to make better.
Mm.
Just because like they had to ask certain questions, it's like, oh, okay, I'm not showing that.
Or I'm not
But
showing it
clear.
clearly enough,
Yeah,
right?
the clarity, and she commented on mine just to like be super duper clear about it. So I think I need to just go back and
Which, by the way, is an interesting observation because your graphics are pretty clear,
I
right?
thought
I mean,
I thought
yeah, right? And so, yeah, I guess it just goes to that point that it can always be a little bit better. And but yeah, I don't disagree with that.
right. Yeah, so I kind of see where some of the confusion could be. So I think it's just just making some tweaks, but
Hmm.
yeah. So I thought through the questions that they asked, I found that helpful because it kind of made me see what they weren't seeing.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, this might not have. I don't believe this will affect us because I'm pretty sure you're done with these critiques where that you'll broadcast from your office, right? This was the last one.
Well, the right, yes, but the next one, the next one will be on campus, and good God, anything can happen there.
Right.
But
But
you won't necessarily. You'll probably be there, Michael.
yeah, I will.
And so if you're like gonna complain about how soft-spoken Christoph is, for example, or that he was sitting too far away from the microphone, for example, that ain't gonna happen because it's gonna be worse. Or let's say Jamie or Catherine or Heather, if they don't come to Detroit, because we have this sort of orb, that is a microphone, and if we don't, as critics, lean in and talk to it like an old-time tape recorder, then our out-of-town guests will never hear what's being said. So if you thought Monday was a little sketchy in terms of audio content, for anyone looking at it online, it's going to be a little more problematic, I think. But that's just the nature of the beast. But yeah, I think what I had happened, I think, is I had the laptop pushed away so that I could try to get sort of both of them in the image. Remember, you got spoiled with Christoph and me sharing some earbuds last time, so we were kind of, we looked like a Grant Wood painting. And if you don't know who Grant Wood is, then you can just look it up as American Gothic. So we kind of looked pretty close together. So the computer was a lot closer. The microphone was inevitably a lot closer. Was that where you were going, Michael?
That was part of it. That
What
was
else?
going to be the intro. But then I did want to comment on Christopher. It seemed like he was doing that the compliment sandwich technique where he'd always say a good thing. He'd say what he think we could improve on, then
Yeah.
another good thing, which is a nice technique. But
Yeah.
so I appreciated that because it softens the blow personally.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think everybody has a different approach. I often pick on Philip because he's so good, and he's a perfect sort of person to put into this conversation tonight because he is a very articulate, passionate, and I mean, just say it. He's just a smart critic. But he's not. But that approach is not everyone's cup of tea. I've seen students, leave his reviews in tears. But you know what? I've sat in on reviews. I sat in on a review at the University of Cincinnati, and Susana Torre was on my left, and Peter Eisenman was on my right. I'm pretty sure I was in the wrong room, but anyways, I was sitting there with those guys, and he made a grown man your size and your age. He reduced him to tears, and this was a 6-year program, a Bachelor of Architecture student, and otherwise someone and a good design student, right? And just brought this grown man to tears. And I've seen him do that on like YouTube videos since then, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's kind of like that's going to leave a real sort of impression on that soul. And when it happened to Greg, honestly, I don't know where Greg is now. I don't know what kind of architecture he's practicing. He kind of just went off the radar. And I'm not personally convinced that that I have the hair on my back to give those kinds of crits. You could take that as any way you want. This sort of testosterone, I guess, is where that is going. I don't have the brains to give crits like that, and I don't feel like that's the necessary way to get better work out of people. But you know, I will be very transparent and with my frustration, and very excited and transparent with my enthusiasm for a project. But my frustration is going to be clear if you have ever seen that. If we ever work together, for example, you're gonna notice that. But it's just not my style, and it could be that, you know, both Betsy and Christoph, who sit next to each other, maybe because they're both from Harvard, who knows? But that apparently is not their style. But you need to be prepared for the Phillips, right? And it's not just Philip. I'm picking on Philip because we both know him, right? But I mean, there are planning commissioners that'll cut you off at the knees. I got my clock cleaned by a guy who I golfed with later. He was the chairman of the zoning board in Birmingham, where I was doing work, and I called one of the commissioners by their first name because I knew him or her, whatever it was, and his name is Kingsley. Kingsley just, you know, chided me to salute everyone as Commissioner Newman, not Michael or Mike, right? He didn't like the informality that I was, because it kind of was a subtle way of me endearing my plea for this zoning appeal to him and to the board. So he wanted everything to be, you know, we could say hi to each other, or, you know, that was a crappy shot, Kingsley. You know, we could talk like that on the golf course and maybe over coffee, but not in that room. And so I know that you'll see people like that. And, you know, if I can get my friend who has sat in on reviews with me frequently to come again this year, he is not only impatient, he is a passionate critic who will say just really blunt things like, "What in the world were you thinking?" And then he'll look at me like, "Dude, why didn't you stop this train wreck before it happened?" You know, he implicates me in your incompetence, right? So, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like, it's a really, you know, fasten your seatbelts. You had, I think, some good conversations, and they were probably fairly comparable people. And when you fold me into that, 3 people like that. But I know Betsy can get impatient and frustrated, and I know that there's going to be others that you'll encounter in your career that will do that as well. Don't think by any stretch of the imagination, Michael, that this is the way that it's going to be in the profession. Okay. Vanessa, hiding way over there. Catherine?
Not hiding.
No, you are, because I have my computer screen blocking you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I really liked all the feedback I got.
Yeah.
Like Michael said, I thought it was very thought through, and it was on the nicer side. I thought everybody did well. Everyone got really good feedback.
Yeah, I agree.
I personally really didn't think about how my parking affected the corner of Chandler and John R. So that's something I've been really thinking about ever since they brought it up. So.
Yeah.
They pointed out things that I didn't realize were a problem.
Yeah, and I guess really sort of tasking everyone to be very deliberate and very intentional with everything you're doing, because every line actually translates to content. It translates to something that is potentially meaningful and relational to the larger idea. And if you're not intending things, or if you're careless, right, about things, then that's when the criticism bites you, right? That's when it becomes sort of problematic. That's when the quality of the argument, the quality of the case making that you're going through starts to sort of fall apart, right? And you know what? This was a critique. Benchmark-2 is a critique that really is intended to say, dude, what were you thinking, right? In a much more sort of, you know, constructive way, in a way that maybe prompts you to maintain the rigor and diligence in your work tonight, so that you can carry it through for the next, you know, 3 weeks, right? So that you can carry it through and fine-tune the decisions you're making, and make sure everything is intentional before the final review. Who else?
I do agree with what everyone's said so far, that they were on the nicer side, but they still gave like very good kind of, this is where you're at, and I would like to see you direct towards this, and maybe think about this aspect versus kind of where you're currently headed, which I thought was really helpful. And I know, like, especially for mine, one of the first things they both pointed out was that I hadn't really addressed the relationship between the new connections and pods to the existing.
Yep.
And that was something that I know I need to do, but I just hadn't gotten to it yet. So, but yeah, so like just kind of, they're really good about giving you elements to challenge you on or to grow on, and I thought that was really helpful, especially with a midterm, because we're like going into the second half. We need to kind of focus in a little bit more, and they kind of gave us, I felt like they each gave us like 2 or 3 points to focus in on.
Good.
For everyone, which I thought was really
I'm glad. I mean, I hope you feel nourished by this, right? I mean, that's kind of the point. That's what I was just saying to Vanessa. I hope that you, in effect, feel like you got some positive feedback, even if it was negative, and you kind of take stock of that and evaluate whether you're going to move forward with those sort of items now in your backpack and carry them through to the rest of the term. I mean, indeed, it is a midterm review, and I want to talk about that in a moment, but we're well past midterm, and I want to alert you to that in just a moment. But I think the other thing is that they have an uncanny knack, an outside critic like Betsy and like Christoph, to sort of say, oh, there's an elephant in the room, right? And the elephant in the room is, like, I'm going to pick on Vanessa now, there's parking on the corner, what were you thinking? And, you know, like obviating the sort of thing that either wasn't thought through or was careless about the way that was done, or in your case, Heather, like, oh, did you think about the way new joins old and what happens when that happens? Because that's kind of a moment, that's kind of an opportunity, and that deserves some intentionality, right? So yeah, they kind of like, gosh, why is that elephant pink? Why is there an elephant in the room? You know, they obviate those things.
Yeah.
Catherine?
Okay, I'm going to be very honest. I do not recall a lot of Monday night. I was texting Jamie. I was with such a fever. I had sweat running down my back. I knew I wasn't being coherent.
Really?
Yesterday in tears.
Well, did you watch it?
Didn't see. I went back and got hard, and it was like, you know what? I need to just shut it down. So yesterday I just stayed in bed. I feel much better today. So.
I'm glad. And you look like you're back home now?
Yeah, I was home for the review. I've been back since Friday, but I came back pretty, like, it was a rough weekend. I was just, whatever hit me, just, I mean, like double vision.
What did I say at the beginning of the semester?
I know. And when
don't
you
get sick. You can't get sick. You just can't get sick. So I'm glad you kicked it out of your system. Well, all of you need to go back and watch your own session. It's only 30 minutes, and you know, watch it once just to sort of remember the whole thing, and to listen for tone, listen for the order of things in terms of the way they were said, look very carefully at your own presentation, and then go back again and listen to the discussion as it relates to the sort of comments that Betsy and Christoph gave you, and document them, write them down, and make sure that you transcribe those comments and then look at them, reflect on them, and evaluate whether they're to be, accepted or rejected by you. And maybe if you've already done that, as I hope you all have, that we can sort of talk a little bit more about that tonight. But I think you definitely need to watch the session. This is one of the very, very special things about an online studio, at least the way I do it. I don't know if the others do it, but recording it and making it available to all of you. So make sure you take advantage of that. I don't know that it doesn't matter what the other studios do, because this is the only one that matters to you right now. So take advantage of that, because we do record them, and take that criticism for what it can be worth. Any other general sort of observations or feedback? Did the suggestion from last semester to have kind of an intermediate review before the benchmark review, did that suit you well? Do you feel like that was a good thing? I'm seeing a lot of affirmative nodding. Okay, so I pledge to do that again next fall. Did doing it without critics last Monday, 10 days ago, did that seem to make sense? Did giving you the opportunity to be the critic, as uncomfortable as I sensed you were in doing that, committing to the feedback, did that seem to be suitable for a studio like this? Do you guys want to talk a little bit about your observations on the feedback you got from your colleagues? Are there any hurt feelings? You guys are harder on each other than your critics, by the way. Do you realize that? Heather's like, oh yeah. Do you want to single anybody out, Heather, or do you want me to not put you on the spot? Yeah, you guys are harder on yourselves, and that is actually one of the things that is very interesting about students reviewing students, and I think that's kind of that's what I've come to expect. Whenever I've done that before, I always kind of brace myself for the very harsh standard of excellence that students have of one another. So you need to expect that as well. And here's another thing: you got feedback from Betsy. We don't have it yet from Christoph. And the critics that you'll have in April, I don't know where they'll go, but in almost every case, the critics, especially critics who are just practitioners, right? People that only practice, people not doing what I'm doing, which is kind of trying to make up my mind between teaching and practicing and teaching. People, which is what Betsy's been involved with, people that only practice are also, like you guys, much harder on you guys than faculty members are. So you need to brace yourself for that. I've had students rendered to tears when they got comments back from one of the critics who they were really keen on, like, working for. They were kind of like trying to do well for. This was a critic that I'd had in the studio a couple of times, and the critic just tore that individual apart, and I think it might have, put the kibosh on that sort of employment opportunity. But she appreciated the feedback nevertheless. But in any event, I think that you need to be prepared for that. So buckle your seatbelts. Anything else from Monday? You all ran long. That's going to be a problem in April. So fix it. Script it. Write it out. Make sure you cover all your points. But don't be long, because I'm not as patient in April, because I have a whole bunch of other people that need the room after me, and I have to be in another review after our review on Saturday morning. So we can't run long. We can't run till 10:15 or 10:30, on a Monday night, because it's going to be it's going to be very compressed. So, congratulations, you've made it through Benchmark-1, a preliminary review, Benchmark-2, and you have Benchmark-3 on April 30th. That's actually 1 month from tonight. Heather, that's why it's better than midterm, right? 1 month from tonight. We will have class on the 4th, and that week. We'll have class on the 11th for that week. We will not have class on the week of the 18th because that's Hell Week. And we will not have class on Monday the 25th. We will not have class on Monday the 25th because I'm at a portfolio gig then, but we will have a very short group class on Wednesday the 27th at 6:30 p.m. It'll be a shorty. Pencils down is Tuesday the 26th at midnight. Okay? If you need to see me during Hell Week on the 18th or the 20th, you'll have to text me, hopefully over the weekend of like the 16th or the 17th, because if I have that night off, I never have nights off. So if I have that night off, I'm going to have dinner with my wife. But if you text me, I'm delighted to meet with you then. Okay? So just give me a little bit of heads up. So that is again the week of the 18th. That gives you, and I figure I'm the last person you want to see and talk to that week, but I'm available to you if you need me. If you want to run through your presentation, the order of the plates, and what have you, I'm happy to do that. But I typically do not have class that night. I won't send out a sign-up list on Sunday the 17th. I won't set up classrooms unless you ask me. Okay? Is that understood? Any questions on that? Okay. Pencils down means just this. It means stop working on your architecture. Stop working on renderings. Stop, designing. Just stop. Can be at 5 o'clock. It can be 9 o'clock. It can be at midnight. If you always stay up till 1:30 to work on your stuff while you're watching the Tonight Show, that's fine. But don't do anything on the 27th. Stop. Here's why. You need to stop sometime. Plan on stopping on the 26th. Realize that everyone else in the studios is stopping on the 26th. And realize also that on the 27th and 8th and 9th, you're going to be like thinking about your presentation, and you're going to probably be tweaking the order of your slides, and you're going to be pacing back and forth and looking at your presentation and imagining it, talking it, speaking it, delivering it with the clock on, right? Trying to time through it. So on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of that week, you're practicing for your delivery. You're reviewing the presentation. You're doing those kinds of things. You're double checking the spelling of Hamtramck. That kind of stuff, just to make sure that everything is on the up and up, so that everything's hunky-dory. Plus, you need the rest, because I expect that the week of Hell Week will be hell on you, and that is the week where, quite honestly, you probably have the most amount of work to do. Then we will have class on Monday, May 2nd, and that will be the last class. That will be a wrap-up class. We'll meet together for a few minutes, and then I'll have kind of like tonight, an individual conversation with each of you about your benchmark and about your sort of overall attitude from this and your own perspective from this semester. All right. Are there any questions?
I have a question. Is there any point where we have to submit the PDF onto the drive, or is that just, are we doing that like on Saturday or?
Well, are you thinking of being here?
I'm thinking about it, yeah. So I would
I
probably.
would love that. So if that could be the case, it's kind of a moot question because you'll bring a flash drive.
Flash drive, okay.
Yeah, and you'll plug it into the computer,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll run it off of that, and I'm going to harvest it from that flash drive and save it onto my hard drive.
Okay.
So all of you who are presenting that day should either bring me a flash drive of your work or share it on Google Drive so that I can download it. I do need a digital copy the day of the review to A, conduct the review, and B, grade the work. So I need that presentation on that day. But like, I doubt that you're going to be able to email it because I'm sure these files are going to be massively large. So make sure that you take that into account. I don't think you need to bring a flash drive if you have it on Google Drive, but if you're driving in for this review, just make sure that you have a digital copy in another form. You know, one thing I learned from Victor, we could always bring a DVD or a flash drive, but we're also going to bring drawings on foam core because you never know if your host has a computer that's working, because sometimes that stuff just blows up, right? So you have to be prepared. So what am I saying? Bring a flash drive and keep it in your pocket. Put it on Google Drive and make sure it's there. Share it with somebody else to make sure they can see it. And if you're not coming in, please do not coordinate with me. Please do not ask me and say, Mark, did you see my presentation on Google Drive? Ask somebody else in the class to validate it, so that when Saturday morning happens, all I have to worry about is getting Barney Fife to open the room, which is always a struggle. Making sure that the donuts and the bagels and the coffee are all set up, and I'm greeting my guests. So I'm kind of host and concierge at the same time. So the technology is something I don't really want to fuss with. Quite honestly, I expect one of you who's going to be on campus to just collect all that stuff or fire it up on the computer and make sure all the presentations are there and ready to run. So one of you will be sort of like a production person, right? But let's go back to you, Jamie. I would love to meet you in person. So if that could work out, that would be just grand. And the same for you, Heather. That would be just grand if you could make your way in. I'm not trying to pressure you, but if you have an inclination, I would suggest that you try to act on that. I think that would be a good thing. Because I think the reviews, by the way, this is a totally biased statement. I think the reviews go better when you're there in person. It may be, I may be saying something that's contrary to the sort of discourse and of online learning. It may be contrary to the very reason why we're here, but I think there is something about connecting in person at a final presentation that happens in person that is much more special and much more immediate and transparent than in an online review. Now, you may be sitting there and saying, well, I wasn't planning on coming in. And that's fine. I'm just saying, I'm trying to say it in such a way that if you want to take advantage of my perspective and my advice, having taught for 33 years, 34, this is something to think about, right? And but it works in an online way, and I don't diminish that at all. I'm just being transparent with you. Anything else? We're good?
I have a question.
Yes,
Do we know where we're going to be officially yet?
No.
Okay.
Oh, whether we're on campus or not? Or what campus? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, which campus?
I think we're in Southfield. I'm pretty sure we're in Southfield. I won the fight with Philip. Did I just say that? I won the fight against Philip, and we're going to have it on campus. I just don't remember the room, Vanessa. I think it's going to be like T409 or T410 at worst. At best, it'll be in the first floor graduate suite, T219 or something like that, T220 or 120, whatever that is. You know, on the ground floor where the that little coffee shop is, right at the end of the hall, right where before you get to the sort of architecture building, because that's what they've been building out as the graduate suite, and I think it's done. All right, but yeah, I'll let you all know when that is. All right. Okay, so no other questions, right? So we'll start with Brandon and go through, kind of keep the volume down. I think, you know, all of you want to hear the comments sort of privately tonight, and I appreciate that. But kind of keep the volume up loud enough so that you can hear when there's going to be a break, and that if you're next, you can come in. Obviously, who presented first, by the way, last time? So Michael, you're kind of like, you can go watch Wheel of Fortune, right? And come back in an hour, probably, right? That kind of thinking. So and also, if you could have the comments that I shared with you from Betsy handy, I can go through those. I actually do not have the comments from Christoph yet. I was out of the office for maybe 6 hours of the day today, so they may be on my chair. I'm sorry. I was at UD, and I left there at around 5:15 and got here, so I haven't been able to return them to you yet. They may not be done yet. I'm just saying I don't know if they're here. But if you could have those out, we can start there. And like for Brandon, we'll decipher the legible writing that Betsy gave us. Okay. Cool. Brandon, you're up. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Okay, let me find yours.
I'd read it to you, but I have no idea what it says. So.
Toronto precedent, nice. Too much talk about gentrification! Exclamation point.
Where are you at here?
Where is this heading?
Are you on site selection and research?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So was that what that says? Too much talk? Okay. Too much talk about gentrification.
Uh-huh. Exclamation point.
Okay, yep.
Where is this heading? Case study integration, a bit weak, too inspired by how things look. Dig deeper. That was a good point.
Yep, that is a good point.
Presentation organization, very organized, needs codifying.
I think it's editing.
Editing? There you go.
Yeah,
Well, so you got one. Oh, I see the cross on the T.
Yeah, needs editing.
Which could have been an F, but I agree. Needs editing.
Yeah.
Presentation quality, high quality, verbal and drawn, suffers a bit from too much information.
Oh, okay.
What did you see there?
I didn't know what the acronym. I guess I didn't even think of that. I thought it was TMT or IMI. I didn't realize TMI. I guess, yeah. So that makes sense. Yep.
Have you heard that before from your wife?
Yeah. Too much information. All the time.
Okay, good. So design proposal ideas, a bit heavy on flash over content.
Oh, what is that? Days or does? I don't know what that last word is. And then the
Deep
word after
thought.
that. What is it?
Deep thought.
Oh, deep thought.
You are capable of doing both. So work on that.
Okay, so a
That's
bit
good criticism.
flash.
Flash over content. Sizzle over steak.
Okay.
A lot of
Flash
sizzle,
over
no
content.
steak. As I learned to say down south, a lot of hat, no cattle.
A lot of hat, no cattle?
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
Think about it.
A lot of hat.
He has a lot of hat, but no cattle.
Oh, he's like a cowboy? He's got a big like,
That's
5-gallon hat. With
right. So what he lacks in cattle, he makes up for in the size of his hat.
Oh my gosh.
So a bit heavy on flash over content. A lot
Okay.
of sizzle. Needs a little bit more steak. Uh, and it's comma deep thought. Content, comma deep thought.
Okay.
You are capable of doing both, so work on that.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, how could you not read that?
That I couldn't like that. I didn't know what any of it said. I thought at first it was a hit. Well, a bit heavy. That made sense. And then the rest of that, no idea.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Like deep. It looks like It looks like DAP.
Is that a word?
Yeah. I don't think so. So.
Right.
And the notes, I'm still confused. So timeline, and then more. Does that say more or monthly buildings? I don't know what that says. And then
The time, the second sheet.
yeah.
Oh, that I think was her notes from the group reviews. We don't have to worry about that.
Oh, this is group reviews. Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, zoning. And then she put like borrowed images or DFC. Okay, I don't know about DFC, but all my stuff wasn't borrowed. Is that what she's suggesting? Like I made all of those images.
Yeah, I didn't Xerox that sheet. Or wait a minute, here it is. Wait, I have it.
It's the second sheet. Oh, sorry. It says, was it just borrowed images? Oh, maybe she's talking about just I don't know. I'm not sure what she's referring to. Was it just borrowed images from DFC, or did they create? What does that say?
Did they create content?
Oh, I see. Okay.
She wasn't clear about that.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. But yeah, I agree. Like I like some of the feedback that's not on here that I wrote down. Like obviously that I'm going to implement is removing the dots from the floor plans.
Yeah.
So I got to figure out a nice way to color code it because sometimes that's either overdone and takes away from the floor plan. So I got to just make a nice color scheme, I guess.
I think Vanessa treats that very well. She's learning how to do that where she is now. Simple, like highly transparent pastel colors.
Yeah.
You could do bedrooms one color, and you can do like common living spaces, like kitchens and dining rooms and living rooms can all be one color, a different color than the bedrooms.
Sure.
And if you can drop out the furniture, that tends to make things. It makes the furniture look a little bit more evident, even if the furniture is drawn with like a light line weight, for example.
If you can drop out the furniture?
Like mask it out, right? Do the color around.
I see. Yeah. Okay, I can do that. Yep.
Numbers, like if there are unique rooms, you can do BR/lib, like library. You can do that kind of thing if notation rather than a legend. But I think you can be very discreet about that. But one thing I would say about the drawings, as nice as they are, a lot of the content on the plans is not showing through. A lot of the line weight is too light, so it needs something to push that content forward.
Okay.
If you look at it online, I think you won't see it. You won't see it there. If you were to look at your PDFs on a large screen, I think you'll see that too.
Okay.
The things that stand out, I think, the most impressively are the renderings and the cutaway section, because there's high color value in them. So take stock of how important that sort of notion of color is in your work.
Okay.
That can work really to your advantage.
All right.
What else did you take away from it?
I want to. Hold on. What else did I put on here for create cross section? I put north south.
Yeah, she's asking for like a longitudinal section.
Yeah.
To help us understand the relationship of the rooms to grade overall, and the relationship of your sort of cuts through that run east and west through the site. What the sort of proportion of those are and how landscaping plays a role in that, how the human experience plays a role in that. You tend to sort of be fetishistic, right? You fetishize the object, and sometimes maybe at the expense of the experience. The interior perspectives are kind of things that just are drawings that you do that undercut that criticism, and so I think those are good things. But when you are talking about the architecture, some of the stronger drawings are when you show us working or walking through the space or walking through or along the building. So the rear shot is a good one, right? And it's the one that I think is the strongest one because I feel like I'm on the patio in the back garden, right? So the more you can engage the viewer in the perspective, I think the stronger the sort of the architecture is. She had mentioned no, it wasn't with you. It was with someone else. I think Patrick Baker, but
Patrick Baker.
no, there was another case study reference that she was making. I was going to ask you to look at the Langworthy townhouse in New York by a firm called Hardy Holtzman Pfeiffer, HardyHolzman, P as in Paul, Feiffer, Langworthy, Langworthy. You might like to look at that townhouse because it has an inflected living room as part of its mass, and I think you'll appreciate that the idea that you're promoting that sort of tries to connect your work to Dolores Bennett Park is something that happened, in the 1970s or 80s.
Okay. So Hardy Holzman Pfeiffer.
Yeah, Pfeir.
I found the website. I don't see anything.
No, so the firm's name is a little different today. It used to be called HHPA, Hardy Holtzman Pfeiffer Associates, or Hardy Holtzman Pfeiffer Architects.
Okay. And it's called the Langworthy Townhouse?
Yeah, if you just type that house in to Google, you'll see that.
All right, one sec here. I got Townhouse Langworthy. Wrong order here. I'm not sure if that matters. Townhouse. Langworthy Townhouse. Okay. I get a whole bunch of crap from the UK. Not sure if it's because
No, it's in New York. Type in New York City.
New York City?
Maybe it's in Queens or something, but
New York City. The history of the Weatherman. What the hell? New life for Greenwich Village.
Greenwich.
Or Greenwich. Is that how you say that?
Yeah.
Greenwich. Okay. Yeah, I don't. Oh, what is this? Maybe this.
So I'm typing in Langworthy townhouse, New York City, NYC.
So Langworthy, Langworthy.
Yeah. So I typed in Langworthy townhouse, NYC, and it's the second, fourth, sixth image in the first row. Want me to screen share it?
You went to images?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the first row?
Yeah.
So second, fourth, sixth image?
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like there's a slice coming at it, like a...
Yeah.
Okay, that's the one? Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right.
I'm just saying that your work has precedent.
Okay, so possibly use that as a precedent setting?
Well, I think you should look at it, try to find more drawings on it, try to study what those rooms behind that crank in the skin was, and try to understand that.
Okay.
Let me look at my notes here.
Yeah, this is kind of neat. Looks like a brownstone home or something like of the sort.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, that's nice. Looks odd amongst the rest of the townhouses.
As I suspect yours will,
Yeah.
until the rest of the neighborhood catches up, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so I'll share with you my notes when I do the sheets this weekend. Um, I know that maybe Betsy got a little like impatient. It was the end of the day for her at this point, of course. Um, but I did think that the discussion about gentrification was an important one, and I think it deserved and merited that conversation by you. And it was one that, quite honestly, was a little long in coming. I was waiting kind of patiently to hear your position on that.
That's
And
where I spent the most time on it.
yeah, and I felt like you took that task seriously. So, in spite of the fact that Betsy, my esteemed colleague, who I respect, was kind of maybe a little more impatient with you than I was that night, I felt like it was an important position to take. Um, and I think you need to, I think you need to, um, so I mean, I'm not sure how I'll say this, but um, you take a fairly developer-sided position on gentrification, and you make the case very clearly and ultimately, I think, very believably, um, and I appreciate that. Uh, I would also say that you may encounter people that think that gentrification is just absolutely inappropriate and in fact wrong at, at any moment in a city, and it might be important to be prepared to sort of discuss why that might happen or how that could happen or how people could embrace that different belief, a belief that's literally diametric to yours, right? Um, a belief that 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 gentrification is more than just new people moving into old places, but in cases like Detroit, white people moving into black neighborhoods, moving in effect black people out of those neighborhoods, and you need to be sort of, and that would be prickly, and you know it's the kind of thing you get uncomfortable about, but you need to understand that. And let me give you um, so I just want you to be aware of that. We can't go through this whole semester letting you think that what you said about gentrification is right and everyone else has a different opinion and they're wrong. I want to make that clear.
No,
But
no, I did a lot of research on it. I know
I
it's
know
a
you did.
topic
But
about.
I also think that like you had a case study for this in your backyard and you never tapped into it. And now I want to add this one to your list. Can you imagine what it is?
In my backyard,
Yeah.
in like, as in Canada, or
No, nothing's in Canada for crying out loud. It's
I don't think
in the
we've ever
U.S.
gentrified. Yeah. There's not a lot of gentrification in Windsor.
But it's literally 500 feet from
In my
the river.
backyard.
In our backyard.
Okay.
Lafayette Park.
Lafayette Park. Okay. Oh, you're talking about they've already gentrified.
Okay, so let me back up. What do you know about Lafayette Park?
Uh, just about nothing, pretty much. Yeah.
Who do you know was the architect?
Oh,
Oh
nope.
dear.
Oh, not sure. Oh, you're talking about on Jefferson, that big apartment building? Is that what you're talking about?
No, Lafayette Park is a neighborhood where the landscape architect was Ludwig Hilbesheimer,
Okay.
who was
Oh,
in
sorry.
concert with Ludwig Mies van der Rohe.
All right, I was halfway there.
Mies was the architect for the architecture. And today, it is regarded as the most coherent urban neighborhood in the city of Detroit, and it is also considered by many who study and enjoy architecture as the most important example of modern architecture and the most important example in Mises' portfolio that there ever was. And it's right here in Detroit. It's, in other words, in your backyard. Okay? And so I know you're looking at it on the images and you're going, oh yeah, there's a lot of sizzle there.
Yeah,
right?
that is that apartment building though. There is an apartment.
Well, there's 3 apartment buildings there. There's the Pavilion, which is closest to I-75, and then there are 2 towers called Lafayette Towers that face one another with a pool and sort of sports complex and a parking deck underneath them. But it's also a series of 1- and 2-story building blocks that create this beautiful neighborhood, this bucolic, green, verdant, lush landscape.
Mm-hmm.
It's 50 years old, though. Last year it celebrated its 50th year. It's the most desirable neighborhood for people to move into.
Oh yeah, that's really close to Detroit.
It's in Detroit. I can walk to it.
Like to the downtown.
To you.
Yeah. Oh, to me as well. Yeah, it's probably closer to my house than it is to yours.
And that's why I said it's in your backyard, because it ain't in mine. But Brandon, there was something there before it got there.
Oh, it got gentrified.
That's right. And what was there was called Black Bottom, which was a neighborhood in Detroit.
Black Bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible name.
Well, it's yeah, but most people don't know what that word comes from. It is definitely kind of a racial name, and that was in some people's minds fitting, but Black Bottom was actually the neighborhood where many black and impoverished families lived, because they had nowhere else to live in Detroit. They could be close to downtown. They could live in small, affordable houses, and it was a viable, vibrant neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
But I-75 came through and became I-375, doing the sort of elbow turn there to get into downtown. Yeah. And the arrival of that in 1955 to 1959 caused the erasure, right, of Black Bottom. So they literally took a big sort of squeegee or eraser to that whole neighborhood and replaced it with a freeway and the Mies complex. So there's a precedent for what you've been looking at, and you should start to understand how that happened. And initially you'll learn that the Mies complex was actually intended to have a big percentage of affordable housing, fair housing, accessible housing for the blacks that were being displaced from it. And today it is actually one of the most diverse neighborhoods. But it's taken 50 years for that to happen.
Okay, I figured out which one I was thinking this Lafayette Park was, and I think it might actually be in Lafayette Park.
Well,
it's on Jefferson, though.
Oh, then that's not it. 1300 Lafayette is a 1961 tower by Burkert's and Meath, Phil Meath. That's south of that development. It's the Mies complex. So Mies at Lafayette Park. Type that into Google search images. Start to scratch at that.
I'm looking at it. Yeah.
And try to start understanding how new and modern can create some came about to create one of the most viable sort of neighborhoods in our city, and add that to your case studies.
Okay. So this is an expensive neighborhood in Detroit. If I wanted to buy like a place in here, it would cost this is the place to be.
$500,000 for a condo.
Oh my God! You could buy a whole
350 to 500.
Right for that.
Yeah, and the homeowners associations are like $600 to $700 a month.
Oh my God! It's like $1,500 Canadian.
And
Holy
you park your car outside.
Yeah, no kidding. It's pretty neat.
The documentation on Lafayette Park is really impressive, and you and your wife ought to pop over and do a drive-through.
I'm glad you didn't say drive-by. Yeah.
No, drive-through. Park your car and walk the whole thing. It's beautiful. It's very safe. It's just beautiful. But what's interesting is it's surrounded by very low-income public housing, and so that stuff is right next to Lafayette Park. So that stuff is to the east, and then the freeways to the west, and then across the freeways downtown, Greektown, for example.
Okay. I wonder if this was in my original map for gentrification. It should have been. Yep, there it is. Okay. So I wanted to make sure I covered this part of the city when I...
Right.
The part of the city that's already been gentrified. Looks like it's the wrong medium house value, though. If those things are selling for 500 grand.
Well, they are right now.
Oh, okay.
They, like last summer, one sold for $250, and it was all over the news. And then $300, and now $350, and then one of them selling it for $450,000. So people are getting very emboldened by the trend of rising price points in Lafayette Park, along with the fact that there's very few of those units for sale, and there's more and more people wanting to move in the city, right? So they're like, oh, well, I'm going to throw a wild-ass number at this and see if it can get it, right? And it's getting it.
That's cool. All right, well, I'll do some research on Lafayette Park.
That's my biggest concern for you. That's my biggest criticism.
Okay.
But but finally, I guess I'd like to say that I appreciate all of the feedback you got, and that from me and from the others about your internal review and how you buckled down in very sort of hasty fashion, even by the following Wednesday night, to show me a lot of material, and even more for last Monday's conversation. So keep it up.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
One quick question. I'm going to do all these new precedent studies and obviously find out what I think is the most important, but let's just say I find that these ones are quite a bit more important than the 3 that I've already done. I'm not going to have 5 case studies. I mean, I can't even get through that in my 10-minute time limit when the final benchmark...
You don't have to elaborate on each one of them. And when we get closer, we'll talk about maybe what we edit in and edit out.
Okay, perfect. Because that's what I was going to say. I'm like, 5 seems like a bit much. So, okay. Well, I'll do the other case studies, and then we can talk about it, what refining needs to happen.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Heather, are you around?
Yes.
Yes. Can you turn your camera on?
Yeah.
Hey, let's see. You were next, right?
I think so. Or me, or I can't remember the order.
I think I was next.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. We're going backwards from what we did on Monday?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was second to last.
Okay, so Jamie, you have the floor. Sorry, Heather, you can go back to the Wheel of Fortune.
Lucky Heather.
Poor you.
Poor me.
Can I have a J? For Jamie.
Oh man, that show's been on forever.
Oh my God! Can you believe that?
Yeah.
I think I remember that in the 1980s. I don't think they've aged. Oh my goodness! How is that even possible? How can people actually like sit there and go, why doesn't she guess for Jamie? People are like actually doing that. I think.
Plastic surgery.
Yeah. Like Pat and Vanna.
Exactly.
Surgery. Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, so let's look at her comments. Were you having trouble reading her comments?
I was, but when I read them like 5 times, I think I finally got it.
Okay, so good observations and diagrams.
Yep.
Nicely nicely progressed.
Yeah. Does that mean was she looking at what we presented previously?
No, because she never saw anything till now.
Oh, okay. Oh, so she means the progression of the presentation.
That's what I think, because it's
Okay.
affiliated with the organization.
Got it. Okay.
Love drawings and diagrams. Love her drawings and diagrams.
Oh, that's her. Okay, yeah, I see that.
Clear and thoughtful, but could be clearer.
Yeah.
Hit over the head clarity. Which was what we were talking about in the sort of general discussion tonight, Jamie. Just, obviate the things that are really, really important. Make sure that what you're saying in that regard and what you're showing or drawing and illustrating a diagram in that regard is obvious.
Right.
She didn't say much else.
No.
But I think, honestly, she gave you really, really high assessments.
Yeah, no tears from me on this one.
Right, and but I think this is some of the highest. These are some of the highest remarks I've seen from a critic. So I think you should feel good about that. And most importantly is the one at the very bottom, right? The check mark there that says sort of physically migrating way past the excessive or the exceed column.
Yeah.
So hats off to you.
Thank you.
I am a little concerned, not concerned, a little, I wouldn't say this if I've seen your renderings, but your street views are still kind of like these black and white drawings that I've seen from like James Sterling from the 1980s, which were beautiful in their own way, and Leon Creer, who actually used to work with James Sterling in the 1980s. So they have that quality to them, but they still look like Revit perspectives. And I'm kind of wanting, when we sit down on Monday, to talk about where you imagine these things are going to go and how or what they are going to look like. So maybe think about pulling together some images of things that you think will be representative of the end product that you're going to have for us and how those renderings are going to be treated. Because I think if you can keep your eye on that prize, if you can show street views and perspective renderings that are like really, really strong, like the diagrams, like the research, you will deliver, I think, arguably a very, very strong project.
Yeah, that's my intent, is to go back and kind of work on those money shots. Those
thinking
really
of them as money shots is important.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I mean, they're underdeveloped right now, but I think and showing the existing context in that too, right? Like the photograph of the existing house that's in between, and really clarifying that more in those images.
So what I was just about to say is, like, you're an architect that's been doing this for a few years. This is not your first rodeo.
Right.
And that gives you an ability, I think, that is really enviable, and because it's superior to the kind of abilities that people that are younger than you might have at this point in a graduate program. But for us to be kind of like, wait, where's that house, and where is that house, and where's this house, and how close is that to the street? And like, that was kind of a faux pas, right? You want to make that fun. We don't even want to talk about that stuff, but we wasted 3 minutes
exactly
talking about those two goddamn houses, and that should not have happened.
Right.
Right. So and you know, those two existing houses are kind of like, they're not incidental to the whole idea. So I think it's really important that you find a way to show how they work with what's there, not just kind of have this be this ephemeral ethereal little gray box on the site plan. They need to like engage with the way that your work is evolving, and maybe the way that you develop the money shot shows one or both of those houses as a foreground or a background or a middle ground element in the view.
Right. Yeah, it was one of those things that's like, oh, I'll get to that. But then I realized during the presentation, like, oh, I should have put that on there somewhere. I think it would have helped.
The other thing I would say is that you have, because of your experience and because of your sort of background, you kind of left no stone unturned in all of your research, and you've actually had to peel back some of the research in terms of not discussing it for the benefit of a 9-minute presentation. And I feel like while the material discussion was really good, and I want to keep you thinking in those terms, maybe the narrative doesn't really like engage in that. Maybe the narrative only engages in it as a notational thing, like notations and notes on the drawings, and not part of the story.
You mean from my overall design statement?
Yeah, and well, not the statement, but in terms of going into like the SIPS panels, that should be evident in the drawings. But just talking about materials in terms of accessibility, affordability, the sort of the off-the-shelf quality of them, even the repurposing of materials, that should be pretty clear in the graphics.
Okay. Yeah, I think like what I've learned a lot from LTU is like clarity of graphics and less text, and then also like editing, how to edit down the work, because I do have a tendency to put a lot in and then kind of whittle it down.
Because you take the work very seriously. I think you want to be knowledgeable and certain, and I mean that's, again, that comes from your age, that comes from your experience. You're the kind of person you want in an office, right? You're the kind of person you want to hire because you have that kind of tenacity, right? And that's very valuable. But got to remember that there's moments in the presentation when if someone like, oh gosh. So like, let's say John Abella's in our review, as he could well be, and he starts like chewing on the like a pit bull starts chewing on the toy that has building materials written on it. You can answer that conversation you can answer his question in a conversation. It doesn't have to be part of the main presentation.
Right.
Let me look at my notes now.
That'd be great if John was there. I didn't meet him in person.
Really?
Semester. No, I didn't come up for the final. I wish I would have.
Yeah, you would have enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I said something like, maybe I said, excellent presentation. This is under presentation organization. Excellent presentation, colorful, vivid, and clear. Maybe final 2 or 3 plates need to be reordered. What were those plates again?
Yeah, I felt that way too. It was the zoom in of the unit. It was basically an enlarged unit plan, first and second floor, and then the missing middle typology.
Yeah.
But I kind of felt like I didn't know where to put those. I had them.
Maybe those need to go earlier.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Like, even before we get into the floor plan, you can talk about them as an idealized unit plan and how it relates to missing middle, and use that as an educational moment. And then when we see that plan again in context of your site, you've kind of already front-loaded the presentation. You've already kind of like biased us, and we see, oh yeah, that's the way it should be. You know, you can be clever like that. It's
Yeah.
not deceptive. It's just the way you maybe tell the story.
It just seems backwards to me because in a
I know.
construction set you'd have the
I know.
overall plan and then
I
you'd
know.
go into the enlarged plans. Yeah. But I think I do need to flip it.
I guess finally, I'd like to commend you, Vanessa and Catherine, for always sort of talking about your work in terms of taking like missing middle language and using it in your own presentation and saying, I selected the fourplex, or I selected the stack duplex, or I selected the bungalow court, and talking about your design as a response to accepting the missing middle. So, good for you, Vanessa and Catherine, for doing that, and just keep that in mind. That as you're making your presentation, make sure that you, in effect, hammer that point home.
Yeah, I mean, in your brief that you sent out in the very beginning, it's the missing middle studio. So I feel like it'd be kind of deceptive to just completely leave that out of our.
I agree.
Yeah.
Terrific drawings illustrating the alignment of the case study to the, I said, material viability and to the case study. I thought the adequate light ? Adequate privacy ? Was a good one. And I think if you start to engage in kind of a process of what I would call in design a reenactment, you'll start to confront those questions with new answers. Meaning, imagine you're a child or a mother, for example, walking through everything there. And imagine what that experience is like. And where do you feel safe? Where do you feel secure? Where do you feel vulnerable? Where do you have views? Where does sunlight come in? What can you see if you're inside looking at a house next door? What could people in the courtyard see when they're looking through the courtyard as a foreground condition, through walls and windows of the house next door? That kind of thing. Try to understand that, I think, by reenacting it. And I think that comment specifically, however, I think Christoph was talking about that, was one that was maybe concerned with the depth of things and being able to get light into some of these things.
Okay, the depth. Yeah, he also mentioned privacy.
Yeah, well, adequate privacy ? Adequate light, meaning daylight.
Right.
So you can evaluate that through that process of reenactment.
Okay. I mean, do you think that almost warrants like a separate slide addressing all of those different aspects? Or is it just sort of carried throughout the whole?
No, not necessarily. Maybe it's the way you develop interior perspectives or courtyard perspectives, showing natural light coming through.
Mm-hmm.
Showing plantings as another sort of layer of sort of stuff that creates just another sort of film of privacy or another layer of privacy. Just think about that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't have anything else. Just that little concern about seeing nothing beyond the Revit perspectives, and the jury's still out for you on that. I'm trying to
Right.
see what those are going to look like as you get into that.
Do you want me to try? You said you want me to try to find examples of what I'm thinking or what I kind of want to do. Okay.
Yeah. I'd love to see that. Or maybe work that you're doing at work, or maybe work that you've done for John or other people.
Yeah.
I just want to know what you're capable of,
Okay.
so I can feel comfortable. Because if there's a gap, we're going to have to hit it hard.
Right. No, yeah, I mean, I do renderings and stuff, so I do have that capability. So.
Okay. Well, then I trust you.
I didn't say do that.
No worries. All right, a good presentation though, and I did also like the verbal sort of structure and the quality of the presentation. So I don't want you to sort of lose sight of that. I think you went long, but I don't think you went long by much. Do you have any recollection of that?
I went over, but Christoph had asked me a question.
Yeah.
So,
I think you were one of the closer ones to the sort of time thing. So you just try to keep that up.
Yeah, I mean the preliminary run through that we did really helped me because that made me see how man, I was like way over.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any questions of me?
Not today.
Okay. Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
See you later. Heather, are you there?
Yes. Now it's actually me.
Good. Okay. So I've got Betsy's chicken scratch.
I think I actually was able to read most of it.
Yeah, I think so too. Yours is
Pretty
slightly earlier in the night, so it's a little bit clearer. Is there anything that you're reading that you're not clear about?
No, I can pretty much read all of it, except for on the very last end notes. She says lots of, I think that's views of the pods.
Where are you reading?
The very bottom.
Yeah. Not seeing integration of hybridization of existing and new / lots of
I think that's views.
Views of the pods that aren't that different, except last slide.
Okay. That was the only spot that really started to get a little iffy on the words, but.
And then provocative, design ideas and design proposal ideas.
Yep.
Some work needed, refinement, clarity of intentions.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Nice buildup of ideas and research to a fully baked program. Great original diagrams, quirky and original case studies. So that's kind of a nice compliment.
Yeah.
Rich house research diagrams. So she reacted positively to those.
Yeah.
Good. So let me look.
I was kind of worried about that diagram of taking all the different program things that I did. And all the other research I did and putting it on one page.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really sure how.
I think it worked okay.
That would work out when I was doing it. So I'm glad that it did actually. They did understand it. I think I want to do like more detail on that diagram and writing and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was a pretty good first attempt, I think.
Let's see what I have here. I wrote about so I just kind of wrote things that were happening, so I don't have to read them. You'll see them eventually, but
okay.
Clear, vivid site analysis drawings, and then I talked about the L41 house, the 40R laneway, the laneway wall, garden house, clear, concise case study analyses, presentation organization, excellent. Black, white, and red is very strong. Needs more clarity or punch, though. So the black, white, and red, I think, is a graphically, like inherently, it's going to be a very vivid and it has all the sort of makings of becoming, I think, a very engaging, graphically strong presentation. But it's all kind of the same value. There's no like color hierarchy. There's no content hierarchy in them. And because there are so many of them, it's hard to see the most important things within each plate. So maybe the red needs to be redder or more opaque. I don't know, but take a look at the drawings again and raise the question to yourself, how can I make this information more clear based on what I just said? And is color the right way to do that?
Right.
Presentation quality. I wrote down that the programmatic and proximity diagrams relies on the precepts, the ideas of the Detroit Future City. The growth of family diagram is related to your architectural form and the architectural section. Excellent diagram concept of, and then I kind of lost my thought here. Transformative something or other. Transformative space cube, I said, is interesting. The concrete may be too heavy-handed. Especially given the title of this thing being a transformative cube. Right. And I talked to you about that in the comments. I actually talked about that in Vanessa's comments too. I think the idea that these things need to be maybe more nimble and deliverable, or like you can throw them on the back of a lorry, or if a truck's going down the road, you can see like 3 of them queued up on the back, and your family can point to them. Oh, look, Mom, those are those houses, going to the neighborhood, that kind of thing.
Right.
So that could be interesting, and thinking through that, how they're made in a shop. So if they're made in a shop, they are assembled there, they're painted there. They're hardware, like they come ready built. And what does that mean in terms of their overall form? What does that mean in terms of the material choice?
Right.
I think maybe a lack of, not experience, but a lack of familiarity to the rich palette of architectural materials that are out there to you, Heather, maybe caused you to default to concrete because it kind of looks like concrete, right? The way you kind of folded them and shaped them, and ultimately it maybe hijacked the ideas. Like we talked a little bit more about parking lots on the corner and being deliberate versus accidental or inadvertent. Begin to be more deliberate about that choice. Be more deliberate about the process by which those transformative cubes are being designed or built, or even how they operate. And I think that can open up some doors for you. But ultimately, Heather, my remarks at the end, I maybe deserve, not restating, but just I want to sort of re-emphasize that this is a very unusual, provocative, and interesting set of ideas. I have the sense that you don't realize how much so.
Probably, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And so I want you to live up to that expectation, but you're probably not even understanding what that expectation is. So rather than dwell on that, just maybe think a little bit more about how this this term, this semester has, caused you to look at one place to develop a series of ideas, maybe, 2 or 3 ideas on 2 or 3 sites. And you're doing a sort of a proposition here, a design proposition that shows a logical and yet beautiful interpretation of what can happen here. So in some ways, Heather, this is a very site-specific, lovely project, right? But if you kind of think about like your own place, right, London, which is not Detroit,
Right.
and you think about maybe what your ideas could play out to be like there, then it becomes easier for you to imagine, right, what they might play out to be like in Catherine's hometown of Cleveland, or Jamie's hometown of Columbus, or Cincinnati, right, or Springfield, Missouri, right? Other places that have issues of blight, abandonment, property vacation, old zoning ordinances that have like clunky, out-of-date rules, and begin to think about, and this is where I'm trying to go here tonight, how important this project could be as a playbook, a scorecard, right, for what you could do not only in Detroit or London, which only you and I can imagine right now, but how that could play out in other places.
Right.
And so maybe try to expand your sort of perspective a little bit by thinking about deliverability, by thinking about the importance of being able to move from a street or a sidewalk deeper into a 120-foot lot to an alley, and why that could be important for a homeowner that's having a business, or for any other reason. Think about how this could be an approach for expanding a property to make for multiple families, extended families, like, your family, like, let's assume, let's just assume, you told me you live with your family. Let's assume you and your partner, or husband or whatever, are living there, and then you suddenly start having children together, but you don't want to leave the house, right? Because maybe you need to be at home for cultural reasons or health reasons. What you're sort of talking about here is a possibility that could actually happen.
Right.
In your design, and we have a kind of a stigma maybe in our culture that shouldn't happen, and you're raising the possibility that no, it's maybe a perfectly natural thing to think about houses that grow and change over time, just like your drawing showed us early on, how a house can actually take on more families living in it if we think of them in these terms, if we get past the stigma of them and recognize that something wonderful can happen. And what can happen is that neighborhoods can have more people living in them than currently are, and that raises density, which is positive. That property values can start to increase, which is positive for the city, right? And that the idea is that maybe you guys are living in in your imagined husband, wife, children thing, Heather. Maybe you guys are living in the add-on component, right? And
Right.
while the main house, maybe your parents are starting to like move out and move into a home, and you and your family can renovate that and upgrade it finally, and you move into that, and your extended family can. So that sort of, what did you call that? That cycle of the growth of the family diagram. Really start to think that through, not just the narrative scenarios that can play out that way, but thinking about how valuable that can be to real estate, to a community, to cities everywhere, and think about how rich and important that is, and that's why I think it's a provocative idea. Does that sound clearer?
Yeah, a lot.
Are you getting it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And which is, like, talking about this is making me kind of question the whole, like, I really have 3 structures, right? Like, I have the
Which I think is
commercial,
plenty.
yeah, the commercial, the attachments, let's call them, and then, like, kind of my own interpretation of the modern house in a way. So it's kind of making me wonder, like, do I need 3? Like, should I just kind of focus on the retail pods and the attachment pods, and maybe those attachment pods can, like, go together in a grouping that creates more of the family home on a lot that would be completely empty? You know what I mean?
I think you need to prioritize.
Right,
I think the retail pods are lovely, but I don't think that's the subject.
right,
I think the subject is the long, narrow add-on pods and how they engage the existing house. And
right,
Christoph's idea about, like, showing us how that happens, showing us how that thing stitches new to old, floor level to floor level, room to room. You know, what do you do with existing windows and new windows? Do they align? Right? Thinking through those things, thinking about and knowing the existing house. And Christoph even said, look, even if you don't know the Detroit house because you're in London, just, like, make it up, because it will be logical,
yeah,
and it will be, I mean, you can even look at the pictures of the house you've been looking at and imagine where the bedrooms are. They're upstairs. They're upstairs, clearly. You understand where bathrooms are because they're the smaller window next to the bigger windows, which are the bedrooms. You can figure that out. Living rooms are in front. Dining rooms are in the middle, usually. Kitchens are in back, usually. Right? You can sort of suss this out. And even if you're, like, a little bit wrong, you've got the basic DNA of the existing house. I think that the retail pods are lovely. You probably don't need as many, but I think the overall synthetic site plan that we called for, that composite site plan, can show it fully, a full tilt retail boogie, you know, year 2025. That would be fine.
right,
But I don't think the emphasis for you should be on that. I think the emphasis should be on you getting a deeper dive into the add-on piece,
right,
that linear piece, and trying to detail that in such a way that it is a compelling thing, a thoughtful thing, a resolved thing on its own, and in conjunction with the house itself. And I think that that should be the major focus.
right. And I think, like, I've been kind of neglecting that one. Like, I've been kind of just trying to focus more on the pod. I mean, not the pod, the
Which is fine.
workspace, the housing, and then the site overall. And I haven't really gone to that. So I think I just need to switch gears. And the other thing that Betsy mentioned was just, like, it seemed like my site plan was overpopulated.
Maybe
Maybe
there's too much retail.
Yeah, so that made me think of, like, what I really should have is maybe, like, 2 or 3 site plans that are over the years. So, like,
yeah,
first 5 years.
like the site plan that you showed could be the 2025.
Right, yeah.
But then you show like 2026. You show a 2021, and then you show 2016.
Right. So it's like, this is where it starts. This is
Yep.
mid and after. So, because it's not gonna. The whole thing is not gonna be something that's implemented overnight.
No,
or, like,
never.
in a short period of time, right? It's meant to be something that grows and develops with the family.
Yet even in the 2026, you're probably not going to have that much retail there.
Right.
And I don't know. I guess where I'm saying, and maybe you would, but I'm saying that maybe that's not a realistic agenda for that neighborhood, because I think the real agenda for the neighborhood is the office of Jonathan Tate, the skinny house typology that Jamie showed us, and seeing that as kind of an add-on or a glom-on, whatever the term, saddlebag, whatever you want to call that strategy, thinking
Right.
that through as a viable alternative, aesthetically, urbanistically, structurally, constructionally, programmatically, You see where I mean? If you start trying to hit on all those themes, and you're going to have a very interesting result. But again, think about what this could mean in the much bigger conversation about neighborhoods that are trying to heal and mend themselves, and what neighborhood in any city isn't. And you're on the sort of precipice of offering something that's fairly innovative.
Right.
That's why it's important.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, I think that was the major points. Just gotta refocus.
You should be able to do that.
Yeah. I'm a little bit nervous about how little time we have left.
Yeah, you had the biggest eyes a minute ago when I said 1 month from today.
Yeah. Because it, like, you know it's coming, but it doesn't really sink in until it's verbalized that it's.
And here's
really
the other
close.
thing. You know, when I looked at my calendar, it is a month away, but really we only have class for 2 more weeks.
Right.
And that's why, as I said earlier this month, this last month is going to fly by.
Yeah.
'Cause you're basically flying on your own, and
Yeah.
for the next 4 weeks.
Yeah.
All right. So start
Yep.
flying.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you, Heather. Justin, are you next?
Hey, Mark.
Hi, Justin. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Are you next, or is Vanessa?
Let me check.
Thank you.
I'm next.
Okay.
My internet's kind of freaking out right now, so
Yeah, it's kind of dodgy, isn't it?
apologize. Yeah. Sorry about that.
So what we were doing tonight, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear
Okay, so what we were doing tonight is taking a moment to sort of make sure that you could literally read Betsy's writing. Did you have any questions
you.
about what she wrote?
Um,
Can you read it
no,
okay?
I think,
I'm just
yeah,
asking
I
you, it's a
think I was
question of
able to.
legibility. So
Oh,
was there anything on here that you couldn't read?
I think I was able to
Okay,
pick it all. Yeah,
okay.
pick it all out.
So, let me just sort of go through this just for a second. She gave you some very strong marks, which I thought was good. The sort of important moment that you maybe need to revisit is the case study integration. That's clearly one that she
Definitely.
felt like you were deficient on, and or dangerously close to being deficient on. And maybe,
Side context
well, maybe
and
the
site development.
Knowlton I think is a good case study, but I think there are other small buildings that do that. So, so we talked a little bit earlier this semester about ISA, the Architects ISA. Go back to their website. We talked a little bit about LOHA. Go back to their website and just start clicking on projects that have similar sort of DNA to yours, and start looking at how they approach things and what those things look like. If you look at Trahan Architects out of Baton Rouge in Louisiana, Trahan, Trahan, they've done some very, very good work, and they deserve some, I think, critical attention. If you look at the work of Todd Williams and Billy Chin, if you look at the work of, oh my goodness, there are just so many. What other architects are you sort of enjoying the work of these days, Justin?
What's that?
What architects are you looking at whose work you enjoy or respect?
I guess you mean architects in general or for
Yeah.
this project?
No, or
Uh,
both.
More so Mies van der Rohe and Le Corbusier. Um,
Good guys.
uh, Diller and Scofidio, mostly.
Yeah, they're good. So the Broad in L.A. by Diller, Scofidio, Renfro might be a piece to look at, for example.
Which one?
The Broad, the new piece that they did,
Okay.
that might be worth looking at. Have you ever looked at the work of David Adjaye?
Sounds familiar.
Adjaye?
I'll check them out.
Um, so that'll help, I think, raise the bar for you on the case study integration.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest struggle for me, was just case studies. And it's kind of hard to find one that's kind of mixed use with residential and kind of institutional.
Uh-huh. Let me look at my notes. Clear site plan. I like the art site plan. It's a solid job on the site analysis. Green Garage, Knowlton School, Sister Pie. She kind of crabbed about the Sister Pie, so I appreciate that. Oh, she mentioned Michael Maltzan in L.A. and David Baker in San Francisco. Yeah, so add those to your list.
Okay.
Another group is in L.A. is oh gosh, hang on, let me look them up. They're in. I follow them on Twitter. Look at Peter Rose, architect.
Peter, what's
Rose.
that? Rose.
What is the name of that firm? Pew Scarpa.
What's that?
Pew Scarpa. I think.
How do you spell that?
P-U-G-H.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I thought I followed them on Twitter. Maybe I don't. Let me see if they're on Twitter. Maybe I. Hang on. Pew and Scarpa. Yeah, P-U-G-H. They're in California. They do some very interesting work. And it is residential, and it is mixed use, and their own practice is very aligned with, Justin, what you're doing.
Okay.
They were Firm of the Year like 1 or 2 years ago.
Okay.
All right. Now, let me go on. A nice solid statement of ambition, good clear analyses of the case studies, excellent graphics package. Your graphics are very strong. Are you aware of that, by the way? Does your graphic approach, your graphic style?
Oh, kinda.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Lovely presentations. I thought the note about the site plan was very interesting because I think it could be very clear and graphically concise, yet still be dense and rich. So the comment about this, how the site plan, Justin, should be more dense and rich with observations and notes, I thought was a very interesting comment. Because then you're starting to talk about experience of the ground plane, right? Experience of the place, talking about place, which is what the Green Garage Alley was about, right?
Yeah. which that definitely needs development. Is that green alley that I have been talking about?
Yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna go. I want to go online because now I was gonna talk to you about um, the section,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna go to the Stephen Hole um, addition to the Glasgow School of Art.
To what? What's it called? Sorry.
The Glasgow School of Art, which is maybe another piece that you need to look at. It's a much bigger building than yours.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm ready to go there. I'm going to screen share.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see it? Oh, where to
Yes.
go? Yeah. Oh, I see what it's doing. It's advancing the slides.
Mm-hmm.
So you see how? Are you seeing this image?
Yeah, I saw the first one. Yeah.
So you see how the building is kind of spanning the block, but only sitting on one place on the ground, like a
Mm-hmm.
giant T.
Mm-hmm.
And here, how it's hovering over the existing building. See
Oh,
that?
nice.
This is
Okay.
all Stephen Hole. I'm going to keep going. Now I want to talk about the section, the inside space.
Mm-hmm.
You see this thing here, this sort of coffee cup?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to keep going. See how the coffee cup is operating here now?
Yeah.
And here?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to show you, hopefully I'll show you. Oh, well, here it is from above.
Hmm.
Here it is from below. Here we go. Do you see that?
Yeah.
That's the coffee cup.
Oh wow.
So you see how the section is driven by this sort of skylight element. I mean, I know this is a multi-story building. I know that's not what you're doing. I appreciate that. But you could still take several floors out of this and be inspired by the Glasgow School of Arts as a case study. Notice how 2 floors of offices have a 2-story outdoor realm, but it's still within the building. Do you see
Mm-hmm.
that?
Yeah.
So this is the kind of stuff that I'm kind of talking about. Here's another
Mm-hmm.
section. Here is showing the how that slot coming through the building is actually a place where people migrate up and down. So it's actually a communication sort of condition.
Mm-hmm.
Notice how this skylight is operating, how it's more of like a clerestory window, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see that?
Yeah.
So I guess I'll go back to we don't have to screen share. So look up that in Dezeen,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you'll have a clearer picture of what we're talking about sectionally, because I think you're missing the opportunity to advance these ideas of the program, all of these program ideas into a very, very engaging architectural form
Mm-hmm.
by keeping everything on 2 separate floors, by not thinking of the vertical
Right.
connectivity and the sort of physical connectivity that the form can have to the site.
Right.
We talked at length about the 45-degree angle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, think of the role of the sections. Um, so, um, so Justin, I was just talking to Jamie a minute ago about like the quality of the renderings, and you kind of sort of showed us a series of Revit axonometric, Revit perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to be not necessarily clear, but I just want to convey that I'm hopeful that your ambition for the next 4 weeks isn't to like do more Revit perspectives
Oh, definitely
like
not.
that.
No.
It's my hope that you're actually going to continue to refine the solution because it's
Mhm.
a very interesting solution.
Mhm.
And explore
Definitely.
provocative and professional ways of creating, really, really powerful renderings that show this
Mhm.
piece.
Yeah, definitely. I plan on that.
And you're comfortable doing that, correct?
Mhm.
Well, I don't hear a lot of confidence in you with that. But I'm believing you, right? You are comfortable
Mhm.
doing good renderings?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
definitely. I've
okay.
done that before.
Okay.
Yeah, it was mainly because this is not at a final stage, and I guess the design isn't yet finalized yet, so
That's
I
true.
just didn't really dive into.
That's true. But like even like in Brandon, his was just Revit as well, wasn't it?
Right. Mhm.
And it's kind of interesting how just the assignment of two-tone colors, right, that aren't
Mhm.
realistic color, like brown and blue on one
Right.
drawing, how for
Mhm.
like shade and shadow or like light and dark, how that
Mhm.
provided some real interesting realism, conditions of realism and believability. Uh,
Mhm.
and his design's not fully baked either, right? So
Mhm.
take advantage of Revit for what it is. Maybe think less of it in terms of it being accurate for material, and ask Revit to help you understand form, and
Mhm.
maybe think of the form that you've got as something that needs to go through some sort of subtraction process, not
Mhm.
literally taking things out of it, but by allowing, and we talked about this, allowing the other night, allowing the context to carve things through and on the building, carve, core it in such a way that stairways are actually pleasant things to move through, experiential aesthetic things to move through, not just egress stairs, for example,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Think of it in those terms.
Right. Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. Did you have any questions about the presentation and the review from your end?
Um, no, I think that was good. There was some really good feedback.
Yeah, you got some good
So
stuff. So
yeah,
take a look at
definitely.
Michael Maltzen and take a look at David Baker. I think, and then
Right.
David Ajay. So Maltzen
Mhm.
and Baker were the people that Betsy had spoke to you about, and
Mhm.
I added Michael Maltzen to that.
Okay. Sounds good. How do you spell his last name?
Maltzen, Maltzan. He was just
Okay.
at U of D earlier this year.
Oh yeah, I think
He's,
Betsy
I
mentioned
think
that.
he's
Yeah.
from LA.
Mhm. Okay. Sounds good. I'll take a
Okay.
look at that.
Thanks a lot. We'll talk soon, all right?
Mhm.
Have a good
All
weekend.
right. Thanks.
Uh-huh.
All right. You too.
Thank you. Who's next?
I think I am.
Me too. But let me use the bathroom real quick and get some more water because I'm out, and I'll get you queued up, Miss Vanessa. Hold on a second.
Okay.
No. Oh, there they are. Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay.
Could you read all of Betsy's comments?
So I remember struggling a little bit to read them, but for the
Let's
most
go over
part,
them.
yeah.
Nice to see demographics. More thinking, more analysis needed here on the site selection and research. Case study integration. She didn't say anything there, it doesn't look like. Pres organization. Too much background, too much history. Best to stay off the history of your ideas. Not to the, there's a smiley face there.
I know I saw the smiley face, but I didn't really understand what she meant in this spot.
See. Chart, not to the chart. Is that chart? C-H-A-R-T? I'll ask her. I don't know what that says, to be honest with you. This is the one I haven't been able to read.
Yeah, I couldn't read this one either.
Okay. Next line. Lots of ideas, too many details, too many explorations, especially in plan details. How project addresses urban condition is not important. Is most important. Is most important.
Yeah.
Yes, I like innovative combined with
Typology. With typology.
combination of typology or combination with typology. Is that combined?
Yes, I like innovative combine with typology.
I'm not sure what that thought means, but
I don't know either.
So she feels like you're maybe lagging mostly in the presentation quality, which is very interesting because the plans are pretty good. What do you think she's being like hopeful that you'll improve, or what do you feel like maybe looking at your pres were the weaker links? Because I'm sure she liked the plans because I know her. Is she maybe looking at the elevation perspectives? Is she maybe looking at the perspective? She seemed to comment and react positively to the colors in the site plan.
Yeah, I think from her notes, I still want to know what she meant by the line of presentation organization. I don't understand what she was saying there, but I do understand that she wants me to include more urban condition. That was something I wrote down as they were talking to me about how I need to show, like I talk about all of my paths and they're in my site plan, but I think showing through perspective what happens in those areas in all the different paths will really show how I'm connecting to the existing context and how the urban condition is important to my court. It's not just a court plopped on a land. So I think that's where I really lacked, was in showing my urban plan that I know I have, it's just not implemented. And then another thing I knew that I have to address, but I'm still not sure how to address, is parking. So, and I thought I was going to get hit a little bit more on my cafe, but they said it was fine. So, I don't know. But so I know I need to do most of my work in urban. And that's kind of what I pulled away from it.
Well, let me, so I have some reactions to what you just said, but let's move through these comments that I wrote down. So I kind of just documented what you did. It's not really like assessment remarks, but it says you show research on the millennial generation, the single family, you show research on the sort of urban condition. The case studies were the urban the bungalow court precedent, the Pasadena and the Fresno piece, the Blips and OMA pieces, both in California, and then Bessie mentioned Braun Court in Ann Arbor. And you know, if you haven't looked that up, let's do that. Have you looked it up?
No, I haven't, but I did write it down. Okay. I haven't gotten a chance to work.
So if you don't know it, maybe David or Jim know it because they're from that part of the world. and maybe they can help you on that. Um, presentation organization, fairly clear, vivid color, fairly clear presentation, vivid color palette. Actually, the colors are great, and that was something that she did say. A solid package of material overall, I wrote. Presentation quality, fairly clear graphics. Text is too faint, too often.
Yeah, I noticed my gray was too light in
Yeah,
PDF as
but
compared.
I also think that the kind of, and I'm going to pick on you now, the kind of girly font.
Oh
It
yeah, the
kind of
sketch
looks
font.
like, yeah, it looks too casual. It doesn't look architectural.
Okay.
I don't know if that means anything, but like Victor would never let you use that font on anything in the office.
There are
Uh,
strict fonts I have to stick to
yeah,
in the
no,
office. Maybe that's
22
why I
years.
use crazy
22
ones.
years. I probably created some of those ridiculous rules, to be honest with you. Um, but you know, the thing you did learn from Victor very quickly, I think, was that palette for like the plans and the sort of limpid, transparent quality of them, and you saw how effective that was. I mean, and yet they still had a long way to go. Let me be sort of, let's talk about that right for a moment. Like you use that yellow, for instance, very effectively to render the whole floor plan, but sometimes the furniture, like sometimes the door didn't have the yellow under it, and sometimes it did. If you look, like when you look at double doors and the door swing, right? A
Yeah.
door with a door swing, and you have another, like when you show, sometimes the yellow actually goes around it in one plan,
Oh,
and sometimes it goes right up to the threshold, like it should in
it
the
should
other.
go up to the threshold. I must have.
Yeah,
It
I
must
know.
be. I
So
was moving too
be
fast.
be vigilant, right?
Yeah.
But here's another thing. Um, like you show furniture and you show it to scale, and it looks fabulous, but like um, maybe the bedrooms are a different color, and maybe the common rooms are a different color. So like living, dining, and kitchen are one color, but sleeping rooms are a different color. That could be one way to help us look at the plans a little bit more quickly without having to like look through all the yellow. It gives some hierarchy to the floor plans. I think another comment that I felt you were maybe not 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 that you made a mistake on it, but like maybe I don't think you were prepared for this remark, but they said Christoph said something like it looks like all of these are the same size, and you had said yeah, they're all the same square footage, and it's so the reason that that's an interesting question to me is that it it means that you said that you place certain value on and strategies towards doing the verandas and the porches as a way of aligning the architecture to the target group A, B, and C.
Mhm.
And I thought that was good, and I think that was probably what you thought through, but if you had said that they were all the same size and basically all the same proportional footprint because they were related to some sort of material efficiency, construction efficiency, floor area ratio agenda, right? If you had said that they had to have the same basic footprint to align with a larger concern, agenda, what have you, then I think it would have been more intentional, right? It would have been more deliberate and intended on your part. But you didn't say that. So it leaves it open. The criticism, it leaves it open to the final assessment that, oh well, you know, this individual didn't really think through the user groups, because if material or FAR or construction efficiency is not part of her agenda, then and knowing a lot about A, B, and C millennial groups, then she's not really knowing very much about her millennial groups, because clearly someone with a family is going to need more room than a single without kids and a spouse. So how could they have the same square footage, right? So do you understand what I'm saying? So like, I think you need to be very clear about why the square footage is the way that it is, and why it's all the same, and make sure that the square footage that you're giving us is the rentable square footage, or the enclosed square footage. If you're saying they're all the same square footage, but some schemes have bigger porches and therefore less heated space, that's one thing. But if you're saying they're all the same size, regardless of the porch, that's maybe another. So I think you need to think that through.
Okay.
Do I need to visit that again?
No, I'm just thinking about it. I'm trying to. I know that I wanted to have the same square footage for each bungalow in order to maintain a certain site plan layout.
Right, which
So I
talks
allowed
about
it.
FAR, which talks
Yeah.
about other things like efficiencies.
Yeah, so it has to do with construction and the
So think that through.
objective of having a phase 2 and like construction timeline, and if things are the same footprint and just different interior spaces, it's easier to erect them.
Yeah,
So
I understand. So
that was my thinking, but I didn't.
that would have been the answer,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And be able to sort of back that up with like other diagrams or numbers that you have in a note card on the side, that kind of stuff, Vanessa, right? But you didn't say that, so it felt like, oh, she's just doing it for some harebrained reason, and maybe she doesn't realize that a single person needs less room than a family might, right? So like we drew a stranger conclusion.
Yeah.
But now I'm going to ask this question. Are they all the same square footage as a footprint in the snow? Or are they all the same square footage of enclosed, heated, cooled space?
It's of a footprint in the snow.
So you didn't say that very clearly either.
Okay.
Right? So probably, hopefully, probably the millennial group, Beverly the single girl, Sally the single girl, she's probably got a smaller footprint and maybe a bigger porch, a smaller heatable area and a bigger porch.
Yeah. She has, I think hers is mirrored the family. And the biggest interior square footage is the roommate's millennial. Is the way I designed it. But now I'm thinking about it.
What do you mean by the roommate millennial? Do you mean like two Vanessas that are single?
Yeah.
That Vanessa 1 can't crack the monthly payment on, so she needs a Vanessa 2 to live with her, and that's why there's kind of like two equal master bedrooms that share a master bath. Is that one?
Yeah, that's that one.
So that one probably does deserve a little bit larger footprint.
Yes.
Than Vanessa, the up-and-coming 30-year-old, working for Victor for 5 years, hauling in a lot of coin, has a Bichon Frise, that she doesn't need as much room because she's traveling and she can live on her own. Is that the smallest footprint?
I don't think it's the smallest. I think it's the same as the family one. But now that we're talking about it, it should be the smallest.
So think that through, tweak the designs enough that they visually look like they align with that point, and provide, let's say, like living area square footages under each plan,
Okay.
not porch areas. Right? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm just writing it down.
Well, this is all recorded. You can go back and listen to it.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I do better with visual notes.
No, I understand.
Um,
So be clearer and be more determined and be more like on the game for that stuff.
yeah, I think I was nervous for some reason on Monday. I normally don't get nervous, but then all of a sudden I was nervous and I had to like breathe, which was weird for me. But so I think that caused me to rush through things and jumble words and all that stuff.
I did notice that actually. I think at one point you kind of like, I can't remember the word that I was going to do, but whatever. And then you just sort of went on. I do remember a moment like that. So, but that happens.
Yeah, sometimes I just need to pause,
Yeah.
take a deep breath,
It's not
and
the end of the
then
world.
I'm fine and I keep going.
Not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think another thing that you can strengthen is the sort of discussion about orientation and front, side, and rear, and the overall site plan, which I want to get to in a moment. So don't let me forget that. So I do like the sketches from your notebook, but I think it's a problem to include them now in the final presentation. I actually think that you have to model the 2 or 3 site plans or sketches that you started with and that you left behind. You have to show us those the same way and at the same orientation, the same size as the final one. Do you know how like Michael and Justin, even Catherine had those sort of iterative site plans or those iterative drawings that showed, you know, this, then that, then these, and then those? Remember how they just sort of kept showing iterations of the same background but with new information on it? I think if you show the testing of the site regarding orientation, frontality, that kind of stuff, I think that it will be easier for us to agree with you that the orientation of the things the way you've got it now is right. It's hard. It's impossible. And I love those sketches in the notebook. It's impossible for me to look at the one on the left and the one on the right and the way it ended up in the final. I can't trace it.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think you need to go through that step.
Yeah, and you know what? I did model them in SketchUp, but
I know you
saved
did.
over them, and I can't find that one, so I had used sketches. That was like, oh no,
I think I remember that vaguely, and that's a bonehead move I would have done. So don't do that. But I think you need to recraft those.
Yeah, I do. I agree.
And I also believe that you owe it to yourself and to us to show kind of like the 2026 plan, right? 2026, the year 2026.
Oh, with the phase 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's hard for us to see what you mean by that. Because you actually never talk about that, right? I mean, you only do it a little bit, but I think and it's fine if you only talk about it a little bit, but if you had it there, you wouldn't have to talk about it at all. We clearly know that that's the year 2026. This is the year 2016 plan right here on the left.
Got it.
So that was the part I didn't want you to let me forget to talk about. Concrete. What are you thinking on that?
Well, so everybody at the office asked me how my presentation went. And I was like, well, it went good. I need to work on some urban stuff. And I was like, well, Mark didn't like my material selection. And Jerry was like, what'd you pick? I was like, I picked concrete. And he kind of laughed and kept working. And I was like, yeah, I need to do some material studies. But yeah, it rendered out kind of harsh and not.
Yeah, and clunky.
Yeah.
Concrete
So,
can be very beautiful.
yeah, I agree. I just don't like the way it looked.
And you know, Tareo Ando, Fumihiko Maki, all of these guys can do a really, really good job at it, but in your case, it looked like a kind of tiled sort of pattern, and it didn't look like concrete after all. And I think I talked to you a little bit about the dental clinic that the office at Soroki that I did before I left, and I mean I took the big elevation of the thing, and I broke it into more discrete, bite-sized pieces that alternated basically just 3 materials: metal panel for the hi-hat, brick for most of the body, and then sort of swaths or vertical grains of cedar wood siding, and it helped make the thing a little bit more compositionally stable, and it gave some resolution and weight to a very small thing. It gave the building an ability to sit on the ground plane. So take a look at that. Ask Jeremy to show you those pictures if you haven't seen that building yet, or better still, go by it, because it's just around the corner from the office. Well, it's a mile from the office, and so ask Jeremy for those pictures. The other thing is that well, you haven't convinced me about the railings.
I know, I like railings. And it's, I don't know.
It looks like you're trying to keep kids from leaving the premise. Everything's got an edge.
Trying to do with the railings is define the space, because there is so much public walkway space with my green areas that I wanted to give the porches a sense of privacy and buffer, and so that's my intention for the railing. You know, if I left them open patios, the fact that the patio bumps almost right up next to the green pathway that people are going to be walking their dogs on and children on, I felt like the house needed a buffer, even if it was a railing. So that's kind of
I understand that, and I'm not going to argue with you about it because I appreciate what you're saying. Yet I guess I would say that right now everything seems to kind of float and doesn't sit on the ground, and I think that's compositionally and materially problematic. I also think that the pure rectangular footprint that is the boundary of the sort of footprint in the snow is problematic. I think that while the roof can have that geometry, it actually doesn't, by the way, because there are cantilevers that you've got. And so if you drew the roof plan of your development, you would begin to show a much more sort of modern composition of forms and as planes in 2 dimensions. And I think that the ground plane, and therefore the patio plane, can also migrate well past the building line or the building wall line. If you look at the floor plan, for example, of the Barcelona Pavilion, right? A very small building at the end of it all, but made much larger by the extensive, in both directions, in all 4 directions, the extensive roof plane and the extensive ground plane. You can still create that sense of expansion within the premise of the house, and you can still promote that kind of separation and privacy. Here's how you do that. The elevated porch line, which is really the finished floor of your house, can extend out well past the boundary of the roof and then drop 2 feet to grade. Then the house has a patio that's elevated above the social or public realm. And if it had planters or topiaries or shrubbery at that edge, it creates an outdoor room that has privacy and separation. But now the homeowner is able to enjoy a much larger realm beyond the 4 walls, right, of the house. So if you look at Frank Lloyd Wright's approach to that, the sort of the expansion of space and the way he does it with the pinwheel for the most part, or if you look at Mies, like at the Barcelona Pavilion, or like at the Farnsworth House, which you saw earlier this term, you get what I mean, right?
Yeah, I do.
Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is the concrete. One thing I learned from Jeffrey that I've always appreciated, don't tell him this, it'll just go to his head, is when we started in on the, Jeffrey from your office, when we started in on a project like in design development or construction drawings, he would say to me, what's the brick? What brick did we go with? What brick are we using? Dimensionally, how big is this brick? What do we know about its property, its strength, about mortar size? Tell me what the unit is, right? And I mean, he could know that, or he could have figured that out. But what he is saying, and what I am saying, is that he wanted to know what the thing was that was going to be arrayed and built up and extended out, literally brick by brick, so that the building could be dimensioned, detailed, organized, ordered, composed as a whole thing by knowing what that thing is. So what I guess I'm suggesting to you is, and you can go with concrete, but even concrete has detail. It has rebars, right, that could be expressed or exposed. It has joints that could be expressed or composed, right? And it has the potential for surface detail with like boards that can be like individual boards that can create form and texture to it, right? It could be troweled smooth to give it a pure honed finish. It could, it can have a number of things. If you look at images of concrete, you'll see that there's actually great variation that can occur with just a simple pour. So you have a choice. So you should get in control of that choice. But if you defaulted on concrete because you weren't sure, what to do, so I'll just do concrete, because you weren't being deliberate, and you are, which is okay for now, not okay in April, then I would say, well, does brick have a role in this, or does metal siding have a role in this? Could it be the material, or could it be a few materials, like two or three materials, like wood and brick and metal, like the dental building I just mentioned a minute ago? Don't do that, but I'm just saying, like, could it be 3 things? And if so, then, like what Jeffrey says, tell me about the wood. How big is the wood? Tell me about the brick. What are the sizes of the brick? What are its properties? Tell me about the metal. What are the maximum joint sizes? Where do you want the joints? So be more intentional. It
Okay.
can be concrete, but don't just say concrete. Show concrete. Show some deliberation about what concrete it is, right? And on and on and on. All right?
Okay.
I think that's it. Did you have any other questions?
Yeah, it's not really a question. It's more of a, I still haven't come up with an idea of how to treat my parking. I keep thinking about it. It's one of those things that's always in the back of my head. I'm like, what am I going to do about my parking? It's like my problem child within my project.
Well, maybe
Is
there's too much parking. I mean, for me,
parking.
there's just too much. Because I think you aren't necessarily going to be able to park every homeowner in those, what, 12 spaces on the corner?
There were a lot more than 12. I think I fit like 20 in there or something like that. I mentioned it out,
Did
but
you intend to park one homeowner in each space?
that was the plan, and then plus a couple spots for the cafe.
Right. Okay, so can you fire up your presentation? Do you have like a flat site plan, or is everything aerial?
It's, I mean, it was, I rendered an aerial from SketchUp. That's the only rendered one I have, is the one in my site plan, or my
Can
presentation.
you go ahead and pull that up and screen share it?
Yeah.
My suggestion the other night was to not put it all in one place,
Yeah.
to spread the wealth.
Ooh, there it is.
So I think there's an opportunity to introduce parking between the first 3 units on the alley, the second 3 units on the alley, on your side of the alley, and I think there's room to introduce 3 or 4 spaces in the cafe side of the alley where the car pulls into the alley and parks off of the alley in a perpendicular way. Do you understand what I just said?
Yeah, the alley is meant to be all pedestrian. It's
Yeah,
all,
but I think that's problematic because you've created another pedestrian street within the development.
yeah. I guess it was just a pedestrian-focused development.
It is, but we have to be practical. We have to get cars near the homeowners, and I just feel like that some homeowners are going to park on the street, some are going to park in your lot, but not every home. You're not giving us garages, and I think the premise of the class was to acknowledge that since we're within, what, a quarter mile or whatever that distance that was cited in the ordinance, that we could reduce the ratio to 0.75, right?
Mm-hmm.
That certain people were going to use Uber or do a zip car or walk or take mass transit, that we could reduce the need for more for parking in this development. So I think that's still in play, but I think that 2 or 3 spaces between each of the homes off of the alley and 2 or 3 spaces for those homes, but on the cafe, are all you need for the whole development.
Okay.
And if you felt like you needed more, then I think you could revise the park a little bit to show more parking closer to the development on each side of that park, in the 2026 vision and in the current 2016 vision. And
Okay.
you could even dash them in as like reserve.
Mhm.
So why don't you sketch that up, and I can look at that this weekend, and I'll mark it up if I have to. But I don't think you need a lot. But I do think, Vanessa, that you need to see and use the alley as something of utility, not just of beauty, because you've created the alternate to the alley uh, by using the alley typology through the middle of the whole site,
Yeah,
and it makes it kind of redundant.
that's true. I guess I didn't look at it that way. Okay,
That's my 2 cents.
that helps.
Yeah, and then that frees up the idea of paving on the corner. And honestly, I think you have the opportunity to show some migration of the bungalow across the alley into the cafe sort of properties.
Oh,
You've
okay.
you've looked at this as this sort of pure thing, and I think it could be maybe a little messy, right? Doesn't have to be symmetrical as it moves north.
That is true.
Hmm.
Doesn't have to be.
Right, because there's places where that happens, and it's quite lovely when it does, but it doesn't have to be that everywhere.
Okay,
So why don't you think about that?
I will.
Okay?
Lots to think about.
Indeed. Thank you. And say hi to Nadine for me, will you?
I will.
Okay,
She's
thanks,
always
Vanessa.
great.
Good. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you. Catherine, are you with us?
I am.
Good. How are you tonight?
Good.
Let's see. Let me clean up my notes here. Could you read everything that?
Yes.
I mean, you're a mom. You've had kids go through school, so you've had to have read teachers' writing.
Yeah, except for her very last line, I thought it was therefore ass, but
let
it's
me
the word less.
let me read your stuff. Forms in a part for the rest of the term if Mark allows. What is she saying there? That's me.
So what I took away from this and what I delivered, and I think her write-up is spot on for what I supplied and delivered because there was quite a bit missing. Because she addresses my needing to focus on the floor plans, the section and stuff, sort of my connections.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yep, and I know that I have that stuff. I know it didn't make it into this iteration, so I wasn't able to show that I gave serious thought to like the townhouses that each had a green space and how those green spaces.
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't have any of that in there, so I wasn't going to bring it up. Oh, I got this stuff when it wasn't there. I mean, there's no argument. So I just wanted to take their feedback for what it was. Plus to mention, I wasn't obviously doing.
That was mature of you. Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, I didn't want to sit and come out with the excuse things, and I was very prepared to take what they gave because it's what I could get out. What I've taken away the most that I actually have to say I'm sort of struggling with going forward is she outlines or underlines in my project statement and highlights what makes your project specific to your take on this. And it's me talking about creating a diverse, the current community helps to create a diverse mix of family structures, and that there needs to be an influx of retail commercial to help sustain the growth that I'm proposing. And the hard part about my project, from my perspective, is the whole project is based on this mix of the different typologies, how I can accommodate so many different people into this. I do think it could help, it could probably happen in even more phase sections, and that's what I take away from hers, focus on one part.
I do too.
focus on one thing, develop it, show the clear section, show the building materials. For me, the building materials were rather secondary, and maybe that's a mistake on my part. More of my planning and how things connected and how they related, and I feel like I did not deliver that strongly enough to them for people who hadn't seen it before. So I very much appreciate the feedback I got, because it clearly shows what's still up in here and what I'm not transpiring and giving out. So my concern is, am I wrong in being so broad as I think she interprets it? Like very clearly she says, in terms of both my quality of integration and my presentation organization, the persuasiveness, is she's like, I'm lost, hard to track the different typologies, because obviously I have so many. I will say that on the slide where I had the site, where I had a plan and I had the Axio, the goal of the Axio side was to, which still is going to be, but then you said you didn't like the Axio, was to show the colors building on that slide, whereas this needed the change out. And like I said, it was a rough week, and so I got as far as I could go, and it started looking cluttery, so I took out what I had done just to leave it as clean as I could make it for the presentation. So that was supposed to be a build-up, which I would hope would have helped everyone in that particular part, and I definitely appreciate that feedback, because obviously you just saw these blocks moving, and where were they landing. She very much talks about, perhaps my design proposal is too responsible, push my ideas. That is my idea. My idea.
Yeah, I think. Okay, I definitely agree that you researched the transect zoning and the missing middle stuff as the sort of not straightforward or simple as the main directive of this studio, and I appreciated that. I said that to Jamie earlier tonight, that you and Vanessa and Jamie, I think, took the terms of the missing middle types and used those as terms of engagement. That's what you wanted to deploy and learn about this semester, rather than creating some new wonky shape, potato chip building that does or doesn't fit the context the way maybe Zaha Hadid might do. And there are other studios where that can happen, and maybe this studio is one of them. I'm not sure, but like you said, no, I want to learn about this stuff. It's been tested, it's been proven, it's part of our history, and now we're here today to remedy our cities with the deployment of these ideas. So I respect that, and I don't think that she's asking you to do something different than that. It could be that she's just not clear how the solution that you show consistently in the axonometric actually comes to be. And so my suggestion, my response might be, and this is something I just talked to Vanessa and maybe I'm not sure who else. Oh, I did with Heather. So maybe you think of the site as, think of it in terms of incrementality, right? Think of it in terms of increments. So show a site plan where the first sort of runner out of the gate are the townhomes, and show that as a package.
Okay.
Show them as a solution, the plans, the elevations, how they relate to the site research, what kind of parking strategy off of the alley, how does all that work?
So a complete package on that.
Yeah.
That's what I did take away from it, and I did write down, based on your feedback to the other ladies, was multiple site plans, phase 1, what would happen now, phase 2, phase 3. Good. And that's also what I took from Beth's, which is take 1 and fully focus, because I thought if I had to break my site down, and I've already thought about this today, it would need to be on John R. Like
Yeah, I agree, because that's the most
so,
important street.
exactly. And then the townhouses make most sense because they fall right within the missing middle housing, whereas the rest of my John R is retail below with apartments above. That isn't.
So let's talk about that for a second. So
Okay.
I think that the townhomes they align very closely with the missing middle stuff. That is the right street in my opinion. You activate the busier street. You build off of things that are strong, and then let that grow and resonate, and that starts to activate and cause other developments to happen. So the thing that would, in my mind, so that would be phase one. Phase two might be a corner building,
Okay.
a corner, that curvy shaped thing, and maybe one or two sort of wings north and east of it, so that the corner building is just kind of a wing nut in shape, and you detail that, but you begin to show how, you begin to show what you are going to end up with, which is the dashed line, the foundation plan of the whole development running down the street, the residential street, and then the dashed line of the development running up towards the townhomes, and then you show, that would be phase two, right? Then phase three might be the northernmost leg on John R, and then the phase four might be the eastern leg on the residential street. Is that Smith or Chandler? I can't remember.
Smith.
So on Smith, and then phase five would be the garages and the residences above that, right? And when you do the leg on Smith, you dash in the garages. So you're always telling the story in the context of what's happened before it, but you're also like jumping ahead with the dashed line to show where it's going to go. So that the story is told incrementally. It's told in the context of evolution. It's also, I think, so important to understand that really in missing middle and in new urbanism and in transect zoning, for instance, they would not call for a developer and an architect like you to do what you showed Monday night. They would want you to show us the first and maybe second thing,
Okay.
and then forecast out what it might look like in the end. Because neighborhoods grew that way. I live in a house, and I'm sure you've been in these neighborhoods. I live in a 1927 house. There are 3 other homes in my 10-minute walking district where there are homes of that same vintage. And none of our homes look alike, because all of our homes from 1925, 1927 were all unique. They were the nicest homes in the neighborhood, and they still are, and they're all on the corner. They're all on the corner, right? Because the corner is the most important condition in the neighborhood. So that means they're like taller. That means they have more windows. That means they have more regal materials. That means they have chimneys and brick detailings and ornament, and they have nice landscaping, just like my home does, right? And then everything else, and it was all farmland around us, which is just like what you've got in North End. It's kind of just like this urban wasteland / farmland, right? And then other homes started to come in. A builder bought 25 lots and did the same home flip-flopped all the way down the street, and then built similar homes across the street, flip-flopped their front doors and garages accordingly, and that created a grain of density and population. It created a block, a neighborhood, right? And then another builder came in using a similar floor plan, maybe, or maybe the same builder came back, but it happened over time. Every 5 years, new things happen. It didn't get all built at once, and maybe the difficulty with your thing is like you just sort of come in, you know, like the pretty princess, and you kind of wave your wand and poof, there's this whole big, robust neighborhood that dovetails in with all of the missing middle precepts, but it doesn't show us how you would really, thinking like a developer, thinking like a strategic, tactical architect, how that might actually happen plausibly over time. And I think if you tried to draw the drawings or tried to document the presentation as a historical narrative, but a historical projection into the future, I think it'll be more fun to tell the story.
Okay.
It'll be more fun to draw it for the rest of the month, and it will be more fun to tell the story.
So, question for you, just so because I'm in agreement with that. I have to say there's a couple aspects of my project that I'm a little frustrated isn't the word. I'm a little disappointed because I feel like I'm going to lose some really impact on it. So, for instance, the L-shaped building.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to project it out, I'm going to lose the impact of that private patio, public walkway. So my question for you is, do I still have an opportunity, do you think, in my sort of vision of the future to be able to show that still?
Yeah, I think what you do. Yeah, I definitely think that's worth being concerned about, and I think you do that. So, the one thing that you maybe want to rely on is the diagram where you show the building on the corner, but you show the diagram, not only the dashed line above and the dashed line out along Smith, but you show the dashed line of the circulation and the terrace as a colored dashed line, as a colored series of blocks, and you kind of, it's kind of like a zoning code that you're going to make sure that when the next iteration comes along, that is given priority, that is an expectation of the plan, and this is where that terrace and pathway condition goes, because you're seeing ahead where this is all going to go, right? You're going to see the density, you're going to see the stacking, you're going to see the garages out back.
So in between each iteration, because it's starting to come to me how it can present, and hopefully I can make people understand what's in here, and I think
the diagrams are a very powerful tool. Don't underestimate their.
So if I start out with sort of my just plan view, my site analysis, I show my stages of where I think things should be, very simple. Then I just focus in on, here's the phase one. Would you recommend at that point I just walk right through the whole thing of the townhouses, take them right through the floor plans, the section, the elevator, so they see the full, then move on to the next?
Yeah.
And at those points of transition, show a brand new site plan with that next phase in it.
Absolutely. But remember, you only have 9 minutes, so
yes,
the full Monty story of the townhomes is maybe not that long of a story.
That's
the
what
story.
I mean.
The story is about how an architect, Catherine, can have an overall vision like the one you have, and has the ability to attack a site strategically, market sensitively, in such a way that the ideas that make the development special and appropriate for that corner can actually be integrated into those future plans, even if I become the architect for the street, the buildings on L, that I'm going to pick up on the idea of the terrace and pathway if I get that commission.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Make sure that that's the story that's being told. Don't necessarily feel obliged to talk about the plans, the sections, and the elevations of each piece. That's not the important part.
That's what I found sort of difficult. And like I said, and I feel like I didn't give them enough to substantiate. I'm very comfortable with the feedback I've gotten so far. However, it's very hard delivering at the end of the evening when everybody is more. I think I have one of the largest sites. I think
you
Justin
do, and you have one of the most complex buildings for that matter.
And it's almost like I felt like with some of the feedback I just received here was that the expectation was they're going to see like sort of a smaller component and far more detailed versus I'm not. So I just want to be concerned that I don't underdeliver that. But I do feel like my project, I know my project is based on the whole future development of it. Not that it has to all happen in one segment, because I know it never would.
Right.
It needs to all be there. That's what supports my project statement. Because
Right.
I personally feel it takes all this. It will grow over time, but once those components are there, that's what's going to help create that dynamic community. So I think for next session we get together, my goal is going to be to have that order of stuff for you to
Good.
me on
Good.
where I'm placing the importance and where it is, and start and focus a little bit more on the townhouse, because obviously I've been trying to do floor plans and layouts for everything versus just put that attention to that one section right now, keep the other stuff building, but at least get the full walkthrough and get your feedback on whether or not I'm
maybe
gonna deliver.
maybe what I would suggest, that's good, and if you want to storyboard that out, we can look at that Monday, or we can look at that sooner if that becomes important to you, like over the weekend. But maybe think about this. Maybe since the townhomes are, even though we didn't really talk about them Monday, maybe since they are more fully baked as an architectural sort of addition to John R., that you continue their sort of architectural refinement in elevation and in section, as a way of obliging the sort of expectation. But then you embark on, starting tonight, starting tomorrow, the hard corner, and thinking about how much of the hard corner you're actually going to, how much of the wing running north on John R. from the hard corner, and how much of the wing running east on Chant Smith you are going to bite off, right?
Okay.
As the second building. But that falls within the sort of missing middle thing. And here's what I want to suggest about that, and while I don't remember exactly what's happening on both floors of the hard corner building, my recollection that it was like 2-story retail. What I'd like to suggest is that you maybe look at the hard corner as ground floor only retail with a special residential or live work kind of loft space above it, and then maybe do ground floor and second floor residential on the north side and the south on the east side. Again, like a short L, not a long L. And then integrate the terrace and walkway that you have. Start the conversation about that as a sectional motif, but make that a very small building, that would implicate what the next architect adding on to that would do.
Okay.
And that would be what you have a robust set of drawings for, along with the townhomes,
Okay.
for let's say at the final, and then a site plan, a 10-year out look ahead site plan would show what happens if Catherine kept working on this site because the client loved her, or if other architects came along and did it. So think about that, and I think that gives us a more bite-sized, reasonable and bite-sized sort of approach. It aligns with the incremental conversation that we were having earlier tonight. You've already sort of, I think, you did a deep dive on the townhomes. You can still work on them, but I think you're fully comfortable with way they are and where they've gone. But I think kind of recalibrating the corner building more in line with the missing middle and new urbanist ideas about living above the store is
Yeah.
what you need to look at now, and recognizing that the hard corner is really going to spawn the sort of growth for that whole thing, for that whole block. So then you can think about how does another architect come into and snap their work onto your original corner. Do you do it with a gap? Do you do it with a stairwell? And we can talk a little bit more about that.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions?
No, that was it.
I'm glad you're feeling better.
I thought, pardon?
I'm glad you're feeling better.
Oh, I feel substantially better. And yeah, I'm glad we didn't talk yesterday. I think I would have been in tears. But today it was like I felt I'm back up for the challenge and I feel much better. So, and I'm excited about it. I still
Good.
am really excited. So, thank you very much for walking me, because this helps me. I feel like I'm still going to deliver on what my concept and what.
Oh yeah, I don't think we'll ever lose sight of that. I hope you didn't feel that way, but
No, I felt.
I wouldn't let that happen.
No, I just felt off that I obviously left Betsy and sorry, what's the other, Christoph, probably rather confused, and I knew part of it was the way I delivered, but that was sort of frustrating at this stage to think, wow, I haven't made somebody be able to even buy into it. But I think what we've done, that I actually feel comfortable with this, and I think that will help with it.
Great.
Okay.
Good,
I'm
Kat.
good.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thanks. You too.
Bye-bye. Hey, Michael, how are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Let's see. I know we're running a little long. Did you have any questions about what Betsy wrote?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of
I can't even read the first word, for crying out loud.
Well,
so site selection and research. What in the world is the first word?
I think it's vast. Maybe.
Well, the second word and beyond says, but not necessarily deep.
Yeah.
What's the vast, but not?
That was my guess.
Okay, vast, but not necessarily deep. Transparent. What's the first word?
I don't know. I thought it was like core hill, but that's not a word. So
no, it's not. But that's what I read.
Well,
okay.
That makes me feel better, because
very
I kept hearing my colleagues being able to decipher stuff, and I don't know. Maybe she just wrote mine quick. But yeah.
Okay, I'll ask her about that. Very diverse examples.
Mm-hmm.
Not clear how they informed Michael.
Yeah, those two I got.
You know, the Glenn Murcutt piece was uncanny, I think, because sectionally it is clearly informing your architecture, and I suspect that you know, we didn't like bring Glenn Murcutt into the conversation until well after you had kind of like told me about the sort of elevation and section of the home. So I thought that was interesting, that, and the Murcutt piece that I found was different than the Murcutt piece that you had found. Remember in those emails that we kind of exchanged over the weekend? So
yeah.
I thought, oh my God, that's Michael's section.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of interesting. So for me, it clearly did seem like you were informed by that, but I kind of know better. I know that case study came after the fact, but that's okay. That happens.
And when researching, like, all through all of his projects, it's like,
which is really fun.
Yeah, it kept referring to how, like, the project he did right before informed him on how this project was, and it was cool to actually be able to see the links between
and the lineage, right?
Yeah,
that is nifty. I'm glad you noticed that. Says here, presentation too long on site with little important or relevance.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with that. She gave you a fairly high mark, so
yeah. I mean, that could just be, you know, where I was coming from.
Yeah, but I feel like I feel like I still feel like that was a good exercise for you.
Site analysis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't you feel that way?
That's why I keep including it in this presentation, even though
Yeah.
I still go a little long.
So let's Betsy be damned, right?
Okay.
We're gonna continue with that. But you heard me say maybe that night, or maybe you're if you didn't, you know, you're not going to be surprised to hear me say that I feel like the sectional form of the building as it is tonight needs to be documented uh, uh, in a similar sort of pedantic way, in a similar iterative way.
Right.
You need to start with a cube, and you need to help us understand how, you know, how it happens that way. You know, why do houses, quite honestly, Michael, why do houses have a ridge? Why do they have a gable? Have you ever thought about that?
Not very fully, because my
Let's take a stab at it.
My gut, I mean, it always seemed like a clear gut thing that's the easiest way to divert water.
Brilliant.
So, it's something that I never had to think about.
Yeah, because we've been doing it for 4,000 years.
Right.
Right. The first Greek temples in, 2000 BC, right? Took the width of the temple, right? And instead of like one sort of long piece of wood spanning over it, took two. I got to get two identical pieces. Took two shorter pieces of wood, because they didn't necessarily on their own reach the full width. They could use shorter pieces of wood, and they raised them up. And in the Greeks, they did it like this, right? The Romans raised that pitch a little bit more because they got a little bit more rain up there, maybe, like you're saying.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, it's the archetypal hut, right? If you've ever looked at Abbé Loger's drawing of the temple in the tree, that's where it comes from. You should actually yank that drawing into your first case study. Like, that should be the elevation. The Abbé, the Loger's primitive hut should be on the left side. Then the elevation of the typical North End house in the middle, and then your house next to it, and then show us how your house goes through these sort of improvements, these cutaway improvements to render the shape that you got. I'm not clear why it has the Glenmore cut cross section, why it has a flat condition up on top. Not clear about that really at all, but I'll buy that. I'd actually like to screen share something with you for a moment, because I want to take you to a house that did something kind of interesting in an interesting place called Seaside. Maybe you know it, down in Florida.
Yep.
So there's a house there. This house, this was designed by a friend of mine. Do you see it?
I do, yeah.
So this is the front of the house, and here's the Greek temple front. But see how much it slides out?
Yeah.
From the normal wood facade, right?
Yeah. Who's
doing that in our thesis studio right now? You are.
I have no idea.
Right?
Yeah.
And then look back here. Do you see that? This is like a tower that is, here it's all transparent, right? And then here it goes to solid. And then it has an open room, or an open sort of top at the rear.
I think I understand where you're trying to point at, but your cursor's doing that thing that you've pointed out.
Oh, sure. It's not alignment, probably.
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyways, this is the side view of that tower. or maybe that view. So again, there's the original house, and the base of the top of the tower is transparent, right? And then it grows increasingly opaque as it moves to the grade. But there's a big room-sized gap between the tower and the slopey roof. There's a gap between the tower and the slopey roof. So you can see blue sky next to the tower, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that gap is as big as a room. I don't know that there's any more pictures of that house here that can help us understand that.
Disappointing.
No. I'm not seeing anything here. No, we had it right the first time. I guess where I'd take this conversation is, these are all good pictures. In any event, maybe look at more examples like this house, like Glenn's house, and begin to understand how they can be diagrammed, for one thing, but also try to let the site talk to you. Try to let the site guide you to move in the ways that show that the house is responding to that context. We've talked a little bit about this before, and I don't want to lose sight of that that notion. I'm hopeful that some other studios that you've had, talk to that issue. I think if you've ever had Philip, he was very interested in the sort of forces of context and how it energizes architecture. Think of those forces. Think of the houses or your site, your project, as kind of like a cube, and letting forces and energies and vectors and the context itself wash through the house, just the way sunlight, cut away, subtracted away form and program to allow something more important than form and program to occur there, like preserving the sunlight to the gardens. That I think is a very important thing, but don't just stop there.
Right.
Mercut, very rural example. Use different colors for typologies for your analysis. So, the ISA piece that you did you show that piece, the ISA example?
Yep.
Remember how the roof line of that was trying to relate sectionally to everything? That's kind of like taking those forces and letting them operate into the new work.
Yeah. What I was doing by including that as a case study is there are parts of that I'm still looking into to take from that I know I haven't included yet in my design.
That's okay. But I'm glad it's still in play.
Yeah. So I really appreciated her picking up on that, because that's exactly why I
good.
That.
Me too. Let me just look at some of my notes. Solid site analysis, clear and progressional. I like that. Let's see. Lots of filters to explain the context. I thought that was good. ISA, Glenn Mercut, for the roof shape, the long profile, transparent and translucent, outdoor spaces. ISA, fairly clear and linear slide presentation I wrote. Perhaps a bit dull or uninspired, which I might just say, you're kind of a deliberate speaker, Michael. You take your time
If I
to
don't,
make
I'll trip over
your
my
points.
words very,
Right? That's
very
how you
bad.
speak, sort of. And I think that's fine. I think it makes us kind of listen more carefully, and it makes us appreciate the words that you do give us. But maybe, so I think that's a positive thing. But it may mean, too, that you're kind of nervous or tentative or inexperienced at this. And, this is a class where we confront those things and we try to improve on them. So here's a secret, right? The diagrams, if you just click on them, you don't even really have to say much.
Okay.
Right? You saw Justin do that. You just had a couple of words for each diagram. You could start with this. You could mirror it, click. You could rotate it, click. You know what I mean? That's kind of all he said. And he went through like 5 diagrams, and he gave us the whole like design partie with 5 clicks with like 8 words. And the diagram was saying it all. And so for dudes that are shy, right, or maybe are more comfortable doing other things than speaking in public, who isn't?
Shy is fine.
Right.
You can say shy.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, work your magic the way that you're good at, right? Fairly comprehensive presentation. I was wishing that the datum drawings were a little bit more nuanced. The sight lines and sun rays are kind of the only thing that are talking about form. I think there are more things that you could be analyzing, like doors, windows, the proportions of things, the materials of things. Do materials have datums? Is it always brick on the ground floor and then wood things on the upper floors? I don't know. Like I would look at those things. For example, more nuance. Try to look harder at what's there, letting the context speak to you. I wrote the words sweet housing. I have no idea why I wrote that. So if that's a compliment to you, enjoy it. Public market and art gallery, not developed yet. You're developing the idea of the market, sell produce from the neighborhood gardens from Muffy. So then there was that whole discussion about the rogue Michael Newman, the rule-breaking, sand-kicking Michael Newman, and then the respectful, the deliberate, trying to understand the rules and the nuance of the game, the limits of the game, and playing within the game. The kind of like the A Michael, the bad Michael, and the good Michael, right? And Betsy kind of confessing that she liked the bad boy Michael, the one that does cantilevers over the road. So I think ultimately, and you don't want to do the work to make somebody happy, who in this case would be Betsy. And this is an important point. We try to do things for our client. We try to satisfy our client. We try to make them happy. We try to exceed their expectations. But we also have to do what's right for the city, because sometimes the client's gone before the building's being used. So the building endures, good or bad, and usually it's the latter, not the former. And so if the building endures and Showstack, for instance, is out of the picture, or Hamilton Anderson's out of the picture, and what remains is the thing, the architecture, then that architecture better be pretty darn good, right? So we actually have a fairly high expectation doing work in the city. So don't do something just because she's inciting you to be the bad boy, or that she wants you to be that person in the studio. Do what you think is right for the city, and if it's that, because the city needs that kind of energy, that kind of rogueness, then do that if you think. But if you think that that doing things within the rules and making incremental change or adjustment, then maybe do that. But figure out who you are and what you feel that you know about the city, and develop a response that's appropriate for that. And and be accountable, right, for it. So like if you're the bad boy, and that's fine, right? And you're going to do the cantilever, then that's probably what that should have been what you spent some time on, right?
Right.
I would have maybe put priority on that, or at least gone through the last week before the presentation to bring that piece up to nearly where you brought the house up to, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think you're going to do next?
I keep thinking about what I need to do next. I mean, I don't feel comfortable enough moving away from the home units and focusing more on the market, but I also don't feel comfortable just leaving the market for later. I feel like it needs to be addressed now, because I mean it's a month left of or the most important aspect of it, but I'm also not comfortable with how the home units currently are, and I think those need to be tackled harder too. So
okay,
I haven't decided what my next step will be for this week.
How do you go about? How are you going to go about that then? If is the question, and you don't eat an elephant all at once, right? You eat it one bite at a time, but you have to start. So maybe I might suggest that you say, okay, I've got 4 weeks. Really? 4 weeks. I'm going to only spend 1 more week on the residential units. I got to get them done in 1 week. And it's going to be this week while the fire's still hot. And yet, while I'm doing that, I'm going to be researching and sketching the market and noodling that along. But my focus this week is to get those houses out, because Steve Dzinski wants to price them, and I got to get him enough information to do that. Right? And then I'm going to spend the next week doing the market and thinking about the market and the gallery, thinking about whether it's a market and a gallery or whether it's just a market. And if it's a market and a gallery, does the gallery have to be above it, and does it have to be cantilevered, or could the gallery be part of the ground floor? Could it be part of the market? Could it be a ground floor mashup? Does the gallery have to be inside? A lot of the art you showed was kind of exterior stuff, right? Murals and walls and installations in the lawn. So could the art gallery be in the gardens, for example, right? In the farm, so that it blends art and farm, right? Is there such a thing as farm art, right?
Most likely, yes.
Yeah, so you see where I'm going?
Yeah.
Don't assume that you've got to design the market and gallery based on the way it is. Use the time you're going to be spending finishing up, as you say, tackling the residential units, by just going through those really basic ontological questions about the next piece. You know, art gallery and market, art gallery. Does it have to be on 2 floors? Does it have to be cantilevered? Does the market have to be in a building? Ask those silly questions, because they got to be asked. Because I think those questions are more relevant to that building than they are to the residents. Because I don't think you want people sleeping out in tents, right? So they got to be enclosed. I mean, so, you know, like there are certain things that are just like easier to answer in the residential units. But I think those are harder questions, because that's a harder, that building is a harder building. So give it the sort of theoretical time that it needs while you're doing this other work. And be prepared to talk to me about the things you're thinking about in the week that you're spending on the houses, and we'll talk about both. And again, be open. You know, could the art gallery be in front of the store? Could it be in the store? Could it be the store? Could it be in the garden? Could the garden actually be an art gallery? You know, it's like, well, sure. You've been to the Heidelberg Project, haven't you, in Detroit? Oh my goodness.
Not before. No.
Oh my goodness. Well, you need to look at pictures of it.
I've seen pictures, but
and then you've done, or then maybe look at it from the aerial, and you'll see how big and expansive it is. But Michael, it's the most important art destination in all of North America. People drive to it to see it and to walk through it, and it's all by one artist, Tyree Guyton, whose work is at the DIA, so he's no schlock. He may be doing outsider art, but he is one of the most important artists in the world, and he's right here in Detroit, and he's just claiming all of these houses, and he's made this multi-block art gallery out of architecture, out of the sidewalks, out of the streets, out of the trees. You actually drive and walk on art. The trees are art. The vacant houses are art. And what you know what the art is? The art is trash. It's trash that's been nailed and then painted by the artist that he's collected from all of the houses around him. But he's recombined them and he's reassembled them into new contexts. Tyree Guyton might be an interesting case study for you to look at. You and Justin ought to go down and take a look at it. Your mouth will hit the floor when you see this place. So when I ask you what an art gallery is, you know, this could be a very interesting discussion next week. All right?
okay.
And maybe the market is kind of a little sister or a big sister to the houses. Maybe that's another, because really, why would it be much different is an argument you could make, because it's dealing with the same solar angle, it's the same side of the street, you know what I mean? Like, so think about how that site research could inform the market art gallery in the same way that it informed the residential units. The stuff that's on the other side of the street, is that Brush Street? Is that the street you're on?
Yeah.
The stuff on the other side of Brush Street that doesn't have the Muffy Gardens, then I think that's a different conversation. And we need to think about that too. So start thinking about those things, write those questions, do diagrams of what you think those answers are. I'm happy to look at those over the weekend. But I think you need to like have a come to mama moment here. You need to understand what your responses to those very basic questions are. We'll put those answers in stone, and then you'll just launch yourself forward.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, sounds good.
Let me see if there's anything else that I wrote that might help. Oh, gallery market and housing relationships aren't very clear yet. Betsy wrote that the rule-breaking side of Michael is maybe a bit more interesting, and maybe the Eastabrush buildings engage each other. Maybe they're not separate buildings. Maybe they're more like the ISA stuff, which is more narrow and side by side. Again, because they don't have to respond to sun angles the same way,
Right.
or site conditions the same way. Do you have any other questions?
No, it looks like you covered all the points I was concerned about,
Cool.
like you tend to always do.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know where my, oh, here it is. All right, well, hearing no other questions, I'll let you go for the evening. Have a good weekend. I'm around if you have anything you want to go over. I'm happy to look at it, okay?
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Good night, everyone.
All right.